Okay, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Quesnel City Council meeting number 20 for Tuesday, June 23, 2026. I'll call the meeting to order. First of all, we have regrets from Councillor Rudenberg, and I'll be looking for an approval of the agenda, but we'd have a couple of late items that I'm going to put before you. There's a report, E11 staff report, administration report 58/26, 2025 annual report, city manager McKay to report. And the second one is a piece of correspondence dated June 23rd. That doesn't make sense, because today is the 23rd. UBCM collaboration, consideration, future plans for small regional airports. So with those two late items, may I have a resolution? Councillor Elliott, Councillor Vic, seconding. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Okay, and now to have a motion to adopt the regular council meeting minutes of May 26, 2026. Councillor Goulet, Councillor Runge, all in favor? Opposed? Carried. We're moving right along. We've got a 222-page agenda, so speed is of the essence here. I'm going to now go to presentations and delegations, and the first is BC Housing. David Sheach, nonprofit portfolio manager for the North. The floor is yours. Welcome.
Good evening, and thank you very much for making time for me on the agenda. We're preparing all day, and now I feel like I'm in a rush. So we met with you last December to talk about a temporary use permit for the temporary winter shelter. And so I'm here to kind of give you an update about how that went and where we're at with that program. And before I do that, I want to acknowledge that we're on the traditional territories of the Nasco First Nation, that is the Lataco and Luz Gustane, and appreciate being part of that community. Temporary winter shelters are designed to address an urgent need for shelter for people who are unhoused. It ensures that people who have a safe and warm place to stay in the worst of weather, in the winter weather. It saves lives, and it protects from use of services as well. Temporary shelters are they're typically either just overnight or 24/7 service, and they typically operate from October 1st to April 30th in communities. So we operated a shelter at 395 Elliott Street with your permission. We didn't get that open until January, because in leading up to that, we had some work to do to make it code compliant. So we had an engineer's report completed by around November. We had the electrical, fire safety, et cetera work completed in January. And we've had it signed off as compliant by the engineer. And we invested about $55,000 to do that in the building. We had your permit from December 30th until April 30th. We operated the shelter from, I think, the 27th of January through to the 27th of April. And I would like to acknowledge your council and specifically your staff. The Director of Development and the Building Inspector were great partners and worked quite closely with us and gave us good guidance. So as I said, we operated from January into April. The building meets the basic needs of what we're doing in terms of providing a shelter, an open space with washrooms and whatnot. It certainly could be better, but it works for what we need and for what's available. It wasn't fully utilized during that period. It wasn't the coldest of weather in the winter, and it was late getting started in the season. So I think those are my analysis about that. And we had it staffed with 2 staff from 6 p.m. until 10 a.m. and 3 staff during the evening hours from 6 until 11. These were paid employees. And residents were provided a cot, a mat to sleep on, and a hot dinner at 7 o'clock when they came in, and a cold breakfast when they left in the morning. We were fortunate enough to share the space with Northern Health, who has been operating their overdose prevention service from the same site. So that explains our hours. They are open from 10 until 6, and so staff came on a little bit before 5 so that there was an opportunity to just have a handover kind of conversation with the OPS around, what kinds of incidents might be going on and such. They had an hour when the clients weren't there to set up mattresses and get ready. People came in at 7, and then they left at 9, and then there was another hour to transition out for the next day with the Northern Health. We have started to, since the program closed, we've had security driving by the property 4 times a day, 2 in the day, 2 in the night. We haven't had any complaints that we're aware of from the community. It hasn't come up in the Good Neighbor Committee that I'm aware of. The security company tells me that they have a little bit of garbage that they deal with. They have a couple of people that, are there when they come by, and they ask them to leave, and they haven't had any issues. I took a walk around the property when I was earlier today, so it's been a little bit of vandalism to one of the fences, but there's no vandalism to the building, and it looks to be in pretty reasonable shape from the outside. There's a little bit of graffiti on the back of it as well. So the current situation with the shelter is we fund a 25-bed shelter at Seasons House at the bottom on Front Street. It's over capacity. It typically has more people in it than we have spaces. The building is in quite poor condition, and we, I think, all believe that it could be in a better location. But the property is owned by BC Housing. In that building, like I say, there is 15 permanent shelter beds. There's an additional 10 sort of permanent shelter beds, and then there's 10 transitional housing units upstairs, which is a version of supportive housing from the earlier days. And there's the upgrade work that we anticipate in that building is substantial and probably equivalent to the value in the first place if we were to look at doing that. So I guess what we're asking for is to renew or extend or affirm the temporary use permit that we have to operate a temporary winter shelter at 395 Elliott Street under the same kinds of conditions and times, structure as I described that we did it this year. I'm seeking funding, so that's confirmation of funding is probably subject to your approval, and that's a thing that we should talk about. But I'm seeking funding. We've put this program forward as a viable program that we anticipate being fully able to operate again next year. I'm proposing that I've asked for funding that we operate it from October 1st to April 30th, and I can confirm what I get when I get it, and that'll be, I'm thinking in maybe August I'll know that answer. I'm not certain. We also are suggesting that we could make that space available in the daytime for the city, for their services with the hot weather strategy or the cold weather strategy funded by emergency management. That seems to me like that would be a good partnership. Again, that's subject to your approval. That program is funded by a different ministry. It's not something that BC Housing participates in. So we would be able to make the space available. And it would be, that program is operated, designed, and run by yourselves. I'm also proposing that Northern Health is not operating from that building at the moment, and my understanding is that they intend to relocate their services. So I'm also proposing that the Quesnel Shelter and Support Society use that building for office space, the north wing, which are all offices, which would leave that south wing, which is the more open, used to be the child development play area, available for the services that I've just described. And then I guess in terms of future, we're grateful to be in a position where we can offer a temporary winter shelter. We've struggled to find a location and work with you for a long time to find an actual spot where this could be delivered. Seems to me that, what you need is a willing landlord. You need a building that meets the basic fire code and an operator. And I think we have that now. Again, we've had a very positive working relationship with the city, and what we would like to do is continue to work with you to discuss what a proper permanent shelter might look like and what the needs are for the city of Quesnel, and how BC Housing can work with you, support you to provide those services. And that concludes my presentation, and I appreciate your time.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm now going to open the floor up to questions. Anyone? Councillor McKelvey.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you for the presentation. Has the ministry funding been approved for the cold weather plan and the city warm weather plan?
Those,
got the funding for
I
that
couldn't
yet?
answer that. You'd have to ask your staff, because that's a city program.
Anybody? It has?
Sorry, I'm not sure that exactly what your question is. Those plans have been created, they've been funded and approved, but yeah, the cold weather plan is on tonight's agenda.
I guess what my question was do we have funding in place for the cold weather plan and the warm weather plan from the ministry?
There's several elements to both of those plans, but I think what you're specifically talking about is the warming center or the cooling center. Those funds are only obtainable when it's an emergency. You would declare an emergency, and then you would apply for the funds on a emergency basis level. That's the way those programs are funded, and that's the way we would. So it's not something that's upfront. It depends on the conditions of the year.
Councillor Goulet.
Thank you. And thanks, David. Thanks for the report. Just on page 12, you're saying that it was not fully utilized in the period. Is there any kind of numbers that I could work on, or do you have some numbers? It just says it wasn't utilized. So
Yeah, excuse me, I actually had those. I just wasn't looking in the same pages, right? So we had an average of 8 people in the 16-unit facility. There were 80 unique individuals that used the service. 48 of those were men, and 32 of those were women. 34 of those people identify themselves as First Nation, 8 of those identify themselves as Métis, and 29 identify as non-Indigenous.
Okay, anyone else with a question? Okay, Councillor Runge.
David, thank you for the report, and I'm hoping that we don't have to make a decision tonight, because there's a lot more to unpeel here than I think is just in this report. So how do you feel it went there at the facility?
Well, I mean, there were some bumps around the relationship between Northern Health and ourselves. I think we put together a strategy and it's a communication plan, but we didn't anticipate all the issues. I think as I understand it, from an operator perspective, it went well. I think it could be better, probably, but I think that in terms of usage, I believe that were we to operate operate it longer, it would have been better used because people would have developed the routine over it. And I recognize that last year the worst of the weather was in December, and so I think that would have made a difference, and it would have met the need there. But otherwise than that, I think it went well.
Yeah, so because I get feedback from some of the community places, and in December when we had that meeting, there were questions that we asked, and we asked to be answered through our consultants, and have a meeting which for me haven't been answered yet with regards to safety risk, property damage things, and and what's our long-term plan, whether we have one facility or multiple facilities, or do different facilities get used for different members, if they're youth or seniors or different groups, or is this only for the homeless or for that group of students?
I think that the temporary winter shelter program is similar to the emergency shelter program in that it is designed for that group of your population who are unhoused, who struggle with mental health, addiction, and have difficulty maintaining tenancies. There's all of those behavior issues that people are exhibiting, those health issues that people are exhibiting, and so what we're recognizing is that group of people is unable to find permanent housing and keep it, and that puts them on the street, which has just a plethora of consequences for the community, right, in terms of emergency services, health services, and that sort of stuff. So what we're trying to do is provide a place for them to sleep, where they can be safe, where their stuff can be safe, and where they can be connected to support services so that they can be referred or supported or guided, towards those other things that they need.
Yeah, I think we're actually all on the same wavelength. I think but the question is this the ideal location close to the neighboring buildings and things? And those are all things that I actually don't want to get into today. It's something that I think has to be discussed at some other time. So for me, my questions are actually with regards to, like, the good neighbor agreement. Are those scheduled? Like, would a community member have known about that?
I don't know about a community member, and I wasn't here in that part of it, but that process, and your staff and Tammy probably could answer that better than I, but there were a variety of things put in place when we set up the Bridges program, a community neighbor, whatever it's called, meeting. There was a good neighbor agreement. I think that those meetings are scheduled. There are members in terms of the city services, school district and police and other service providers, Northern Health, and that's designed to be a place where those conversations can occur and where those issues can be raised and where the relationships are built so that a phone call can be made if there's an incident, that they can just reach out to the operator or another person. It's designed to respond to those community concerns as they arise. I think they're not necessarily designed for individual citizens, but there would be ways for that group of people as well to express what's going on with them, be it through Bylaw, police, or calls to yourselves.
Yeah, and I understand what a good neighbor agreement is. I think my question then has to go to Tanya. Tanya, when did we have a specific meeting with regards to 395 Elliott Street?
The council meetings, you mean?
The public, we talked about it in December. It was a heated discussion. It was a horrible discussion for us. And ultimately, one of the comments was, we need a long-term plan. We need to have a meeting with the community to talk about this. When did that meeting happen? And when are the future meetings scheduled? Because that was in our requests, I believe, in December. And so for me, it's really important to know what happened. I understand every group that's involved, city and everything, we're fine, but did we actually ever have input from the community with regards to things that went on? And I think Joel, I think you want to answer that question.
Yeah, I'm just wondering, Councillor Runge, are you talking about a good neighbor meeting or a specific community meeting?
Well, we referenced to no concerns have been raised in the good neighbor meetings. We're speaking, I think, today about Elliott Street. My question is, when was that meeting, and when is that future meeting? Like, when would I know about it or someone else know about it? or maybe I just missed it, you know.
Yeah, so you didn't miss it. So the direction from council at the time was to come up with a long-term strategy for engaging the community on a permanent resolution to the shelter shortage in the community. So you'll see in your staff package tonight that there is an approach to engaging the community to begin having that conversation later this summer, through the fall and into the winter, so we can begin to engage with all of the appropriate stakeholders on that issue. So staff do plan to intend to begin that comprehensive process in the months ahead if council is supportive of the strategy that we have outlined to engage the community. There was not a request to have a specific council meeting around 395 Elliott, but rather it was directed to staff to just continue to engage with the Quesnel Shelter and Support Society as well as BC Housing on the operation of 395 Elliott, and then come back to council at the end of the temporary use permit and report on how it went, which is what's occurring tonight. So what's before you now is David is here providing here's how it went, and there is later in your agenda part of the deeper report is here is how staff are recommending that we begin to engage the city on a long-term solution to shelter, which includes everything from size, wraparound services, but also location and needs, which is a process that will involve the community as well as council.
Thank you. And with due respect to both of you, I'm going to go back to page 14 then, because there were no concerns raised at the Good Neighbor meetings. To me, when I read this, I put it towards Elliott Street. So we had nothing with regards to that, I believe. So I'll leave my question here. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that. Councillor Goulet.
Thank you. And just, sorry, just another question if I may here. The 395 Elliott Street, what is the capacity of that location? So is it going to be X? Is it going to be more? Like they're going to move offices, I think, in part I see in the future office space over there. So there's going to be some renovations. Is that going to cut down on the capacity for the inside of the building? Just curious.
No, I'm not planning to do any renovations as far as the office is concerned. It's a bit of a horse trade from my perspective on that one, in that the building is going to be empty and somebody needs to look after it. And I know that the Quesnel Shelter and Support Society is in need of space to be able to operate their administration. If you're familiar with the building, the north wing, which runs this way, east and west, is 6 or 7 offices, staff room, a reception area, bathrooms, and then the south wing, which runs north and south, it has three offices, a kitchen, a bathroom, and just a big open area. I don't remember the measurement. So we had an engineer's report, code compliance report done. So we made the recommendations that they raised in terms of smoke detectors, smoke alarms, exit hardware, that sort of stuff. And included in that plan was a layout for 16 mattresses. So what the building inspector has approved and what the fire department has approved is 16 mattresses. Part of that was because of the way that Northern Health had their room dividers for their OPS. If those weren't there, we probably could get a couple more in, maybe 20 if I'm not mistaken, but I really don't want to go and spend another $3,000 for that. So my intention is to leave it as it is, the way it was presented to you in December, the way it is that I'm presenting it to you now. And frankly, it looks like that's an appropriate number as well in terms of need.
Okay, are we good to go on that one? Councillor Goulet? Okay, thank you. Anyone else? Okay, well, sorry, I've got your name right here in front of me and I missed it. Thank you, Councillor Vic. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thanks, David. Part of I guess what I'd like to discuss with you is how we can build confidence in the neighborhood, because there still is a lack of confidence just from conversations of people feeding back to me as a councillor and to other councillors as well. So on the topic of confidence building to have confidence in the operation, you noted that Northern Health is now no longer going to be on site. Are they no longer going to operate the OPS? So that's going to go away as well?
I couldn't speak for them because I don't really know where they're at.
Okay.
But my understanding is that they are have been moving towards dispersing their programming or presenting their programming differently in the community.
Okay, it's not clear. Okay.
No, well, I can't really speak for them either. Like, I think I know, but I don't know.
Okay.
And I think that, I think you're going to be talking to them at some point later in the summer when you can talk about that. What I know is that they haven't been there. I've talked to them as we go along. This is what we're going to do, and they're okay with that. So it looks like the OPS isn't going to operate from there.
Okay.
I think, I think I said here that, I'm not saying that this is the best location. What I'm saying is that this is a location that's not the worst, and that there's a willing landlord. And I think that's the other part of the problem. Like, the truth of the matter is that this is a very complicated clientele that has an impact on anybody wherever they go. And it kind of doesn't matter where we respond to that program, it's going to have an impact. And that's just part of the group of people that live in your town. So to me, I'm not saying it's an ideal location, but it's not the worst location. It has the facility that we need. There's some experience with that population in the area. And so it's a place where we can begin to run the program, and where we can then continue to engage a conversation, to Councillor Runge's point, with the council and with the city and with the community about, because the reality is according to the last homeless count, there's 131 people that are unhoused in your town, and that's probably a low number. We have 10 units upstairs in the shelter. We have 32 units at Bridges. We have 21 units at Grace, and we're building a 50-unit building at Grace. And right now, 31 of those units are filled. So we continue to have a housing problem for this population. What I would like to see is a shelter that better met your needs, better met my needs, honestly, that was in a location that was as good as we could develop, with the kinds of services that go with it. It looks to me, and I'm not speaking for BC Housing or for you or for anybody, it looks to me like we need more housing of that nature, because the population, just as the numbers that I've given you, seems to me that there aren't quite enough places for people to live. I think we would rather have people live in a real place. We have experience with people having apartments in a tenancy kind of agreement and being well supported. So, and then I think, another location for a shelter would be ideal.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying, and I think there's consensus that we want to serve the need that's there. And I think it's articulated in many reports that we have a need for extra shelter spaces, particularly as of this nature, a cold climate. I think what I'm trying to convey, and I have a couple more questions, is part of it is, you're right, it's not the perfect location. There probably isn't one. But there could be more acceptance to the location that you're proposing if we build confidence in the neighborhood that your facility won't be additive to the social issues that are already present in that neighborhood. And there are some.
Yeah.
So regarding the vacated Northern Health component, the reason why I raised that is on December 30th, it was made clear that Northern Health was providing the security, pretty robust security. So are you going to fulfill that security mandate entirely?
Yeah, I guess we are. Okay. Yeah, I mean, so we had security overnight, and we were operating a program 24/7. So the property was, there were staff on the property. We provided security when they changed their operation. We provided daytime security while the shelter operated in the evening. Quesnel Shelter and Support provided daytime security. Since that program is concluded, we have set up security patrols. They're running right now 4 times a day, 2 in the day, 2 in the night. I reached out to them today to find out what that looked like. They said that there's a couple of people that they've, come around and were there. They moved along relatively easily. There's a bit of garbage that I think they addressed. I noticed a little bit. I didn't pick it up today. There's a bit of vandalism to the one fence that we put up. We put up a fence at the very back to just. It's not very much, right? But the idea is that it doesn't make it convenient to come around to be in the lane, right? So we've done a few things to try and manage that. Yeah.
Okay. The next point I would have is on your report tonight, you touch a little bit on the operation itself in terms of the staffing.
Yeah.
Would you be prepared to share a little bit more detail on that operation, like the credentials of the staff, policies and procedures to deal with violent individuals, again, in the context of building confidence in the neighborhood that you've got robust policies to manage the operation?
Yeah, well, I think, Mr. Mayor, if you would allow, Quesnel Shelter and Support Society, many of the staff and the leaders of that program are in the gallery, and I think could answer the question specifically. But I'd also like to say that in my experience with the operations that I work with in the north, this organization is one of the strongest in terms of their understanding around harm reduction, around mental health, and around supporting people in a trauma-informed way, and supporting people through very, 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 very complex experiences in their lives with their health and their addictions. So I'm glad to say that because I have a lot of confidence in them. But if you wouldn't mind, I think Tammy or one of her staff would be able to answer Councillor's questions more specifically.
Yeah, sure. I'm certainly in agreement with that. When they come up, just identify themselves. And I'm going to go to Councillor Runge after that.
Yeah, and while she's coming, we were intending to co-present here tonight, but there was a bit of a mix-up administratively in terms of us being all on the same page at the same time.
My question is obviously pertinent to our understanding here. However, it is actually more important that the neighborhood understand it. So we have a very long agenda tonight. I think, to Councillor Runge's point, there needs to be more of a community-led effort to share this operational plan with the community, specifically the neighborhood, including us. So I don't know if this is the right time to get in the weeds, but I don't mind. But I have one more comment in the context of confidence building in the neighborhood is that you've talked about the Good Neighbor Agreement, and I think that's not working properly in terms of the feedback you're getting from neighbors, from people that live in your neighborhood. They're not engaging with you. I don't know why. They're engaging with us, with me, with all of us, but they're not engaging with you, and I don't know why that is. There's a trust issue. There's a confidence problem. And for us to go forward with this proposal to extend it for 2 more years, I think we really need to address the confidence issue in the neighborhood. So those are my 3 points. Sorry to take up so much time, but that's the juxta.
I mean, I appreciate. I mean, we need to have a real good conversation. So I appreciate you initiating it.
Okay, just for continuity and context here, I'm going to go to Councillor Runge because I think his question might help you. So, Councillor Runge.
And you'll have time too, I promise. My question, David, is, so here we are today with regards to funding and lack of funding or not sure of funding. If we were not to make a decision today, and if we're pushed off till, let's say, later in the summer, what type of a timeline would you need from BC Housing to make sure that it would still be running if that were the decision, and then while we're still meeting all, like, if your decision has to come tonight, this to me once would go back to, this is very rushed. So if there's a window for us, do we have a window of a couple months?
I would like you to do it tonight. I'm just saying. I guess the short answer to your question is, yeah, we can work with that. I mean, the problem is that, from my end, is that the longer we kind of push off giving me the green light, delays being able to move a lot of other things from my perspective. My problems are different, right? But that would delay some of the other things that I'd like to do or that I want to do alongside this. From a funding perspective, so I've put this down, we've identified this as a viable project, meaning that we believe strongly that it will be able to go forward. So it is going forward for funding in the next few weeks, short weeks, I think. Once that comes along, then I think we'll know that we have the funding. The further and funding is tight, as you know, this year more than others. So the further we go without being able to nail it down and take the money, the greater the risk comes that somebody else is going to be more ready. So there is a risk. To your question about, could it be later in July or could it be in August? Yeah, I think we could do that. I think that we can do that for sure.
Well, I appreciate hearing that because we actually have a funding proposal for the Grace Inn that was supposed to have been built or been in progress, and that got kiboshed not because of your fault or anything, but more because of, I think, the government coffers right now.
But it didn't get kiboshed.
Well, it got pushed down the road, which leaves then, those 30 additional people unhoused, which when we originally planned it, I believe it was 2026, 2027 completion planned.
Yeah, it might have been. So my understanding about that is that they're engaged with an architect now and that the intention is to begin in April and have it ready by the end of the year. I don't make that, so please don't say that I said, but that's what I understand, and I have the same concern on that front as you, because I don't like that facility. I mean, it's not ideal, right? It doesn't look good, it doesn't work well, but my understanding is that we're actively working on that now, and that the intention is that as soon as it's good to go in the spring, that it'll be started, and then I'm told that it can be completed in that sort of 3/4 kind of period.
Oh, sorry, I didn't know you were done there, Councillor Runge. Okay, so now go ahead.
Push your button.
Hi, everybody. Tammy Jensen, Executive Director for Quesnel Shelter and Support Society. So I'm not exactly sure what all you'd like to hear from me, but Mitch, Councillor Vic, I'm going to go to your question about staff training and the credentials. So it's actually written right into our contracts with BC Housing, what training is expected for staff to have. And I have no issue meeting with you to go over all of that. I can't remember all of it off the top of my head. But there is a list of things that staff are expected to be trained in, and, nonviolent crisis intervention, all of those things. So it's in there. We are a unionized organization, and with that, for job postings and whatnot, you have to have certain levels of education. So we meet those credentials as well. But again, we can answer that more clearly.
Okay, thank you for that. Now, do we have any more questions from council? Any more questions from our delegation? This whole matter of sheltering is coming up under item E7 in reports. I'm not suggesting that you need to stick around for that, but certainly this is a long and complex situation, and we're just we will be discussing it further. I'm not suggesting for a minute that we're going to be making a decision on this tonight, but we're pointing this right in the right direction. We want this resolved, and so thank you for your input here tonight. I think it's positive, and so I'll leave it at that.
Thank you.
We'll now move to our next delegation.
Can I just offer, if any of you want to talk about this, you can call me, and Tanya has my information.
Well, thank you for that.
Thank you.
That's a good step in the right direction.
Yeah, no, I'm glad to have a conversation with you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay. Our next presentation is from PSI Group of Companies, Dr. Curtis Berthelot, Professional Engineer, President. And he's going to be speaking to us about business expansion and transportation infrastructure and mining engineer applications.
Thank you, Mayor. Councillors, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for having me. And just want to right up front say I'm not asking for anything. This is more informative, so we can kick back a little bit and just kind of think through what I see as an opportunity in the community here. I'd like to thank Amy and Laura for all their hard work setting this all up and getting us underway. So. What I want to do is just briefly go over, there's a lot of photos in here, so I'm just going to kind of talk to the pictures of kind of our background and who we are and what we've done. And basically, we started out as a highway engineering company, we still are, but we focus more on and we came up through the traditional materials, road construction, that type of thing, but we're more into the high-tech side of the business now. The transportation sector has gone through a renaissance in the last couple of decades. We're probably the last engineering discipline to go fairly scientific and mechanistic. Sensor technology, computational capabilities are much greater now. So we can do things that I'm going to cover off in here. But we also started about 15 years ago because we were big into road recycling, and we got into tailings recycling. And we've worked in 14 mines around the world on those issues and helped with some pretty severe ground support issues in some mines that were in big trouble. And that's typically where we've traditionally been brought into mines, is when they're in trouble. And now we've turned all of those learnings into some business opportunities here that I want to cover with you. And we've identified City of Quesnel to be our BC center of excellence and hub, if you will, of operations. So if you'll have us. So in this presentation, I'll go through PSI's background, who we are and what we do, technically what we do, and the types of things and activities that we undertake. The business opportunities, I've been coming to your community for about 5-6 years. My colleague Len Sinclair with Omanika, they run one of the mines up towards Wells, and I've helped advise them a little bit and worked with Len for the last number of years on that project. So that's why he's here tonight, and he's one of our partners in another mine, Fraser Canyon, about 18 kilometers northwest of here, that we're going to hopefully be opening up. But with that, there's a spin-off business opportunity I see given what's going on in the global world. We're in a mineral super cycle. Typically, resource cycles last 10 years. I think this one's here to stay. We've never seen gold prices like this. They're supposed to go up, as an example. Uranium prices, everything's gone up because everything's going high-tech, and we need these rare earth minerals. The other thing is it's about security. National security, if we want to be truly secure and dependent on ourselves, we have to be in control of our own minerals. No question about that, just the way the future is going. Those that aren't in control of that are going to be susceptible to geopolitical things like we've seen in the last few years, and we just don't want to be held ransom to that. So that's one of the reasons why these super cycles are coming of age. AI is another one. It's here to stay. We actually use AI quite a bit in both mining and transportation operations, and I can go through that. Strategic partnering and support, and then questions and answers at the end of it. And I'd like to acknowledge we are partnered with Nazco First Nation, and Latako have been very welcoming to us and very open-minded, actually, very proactive. It was good to see. We've worked with a lot of First Nations and Métis in Saskatchewan, and but these bands are smaller, but they're actually pretty mighty. They're thinking forward, so it was actually very rewarding to sit down and work with them. So what we do, I walked out of Texas A&M about 30 years ago and trained in engineering mechanics, material science, and applied to road systems. The Saskatchewan Highway Department actually funded my research and sent me to Texas A&M to overhaul our design methods back in the day. And what evolved out of that is very scientific process to geomechanics, road construction, structural modeling of roads. We're now into what's called digital twinning. There's technology available now, 3D ground penetrating radar systems, particularly out of Europe, that you can run down the road and actually map out all of your buried utilities quite accurately now. So these are the types of things that we do. AI, we work with some Europeans in AI performance prediction of infrastructure, resource location, things like that. Renewable systems, that's the way of the future. We're moving away from hydrocarbon type systems, getting into more renewable systems. Recycling and those types of things have been around a while, but we've actually have systems now where we can engineer them better than the old conventional systems, so it's exciting. And I'm a big believer in partnering. I like working with good people. I like partnering with people and to move forward, not just on business, but that's kind of how we're programmed as communities. So partnering is huge for us, and the Indigenous portfolio in this country. Ottawa has mandated that we should be working with Indigenous people on anything related to the land, and I think it's the right thing to do. When we were working at Cameco, we started out overhauling their whole, I'm not going to get into details, but backfilling in shotcrete and that type of thing. Started out with 6 First Nations people. When we transferred the technology over, we had employed and trained 80 in a period of about 3 years. Good paying, good jobs, and people in the north that would not have had the opportunity to do the types of things. So I'm a big believer in training. I was a professor for 15 years at the U of S in civil engineering, so it's something near and dear to me. So I'm going to go through some of this pretty quick. So mining, I call it a mining or resource, minerals resource economic super cycle. New mines, recommissioning mines. You look at the Fraser mine that we're looking at, both on the tertiary side and the Canyon side. That mine was first identified back in the 30s. Len knows more about it than I do. But they did actually a full bulk sample in the 80s, and it's been sitting dormant. And there's over $1 billion worth of gold in that short section of mine. So you guys are sitting on some pretty prime real estate around here. And the world needs what you have. So rare earths, that is really come of age now because of electronics, and everything is technological now. So BC is full of rare earth elements. And again, you're sitting on some good real estate here. The challenge is poor ground conditions. Typically, high-value minerals are in bad ground. And that's one of the reasons why we're talking about the business opportunity is Len and I brainstormed and we thought, well, why don't we create a mining ground support center here instead of shipping in shotcrete from Edmonton or north of Winnipeg or the lower mainland, let's make it here. And that's essentially what we did at some of the mines we've been at. We just produced it locally out of local resources. One of the neat things about Fraser Canyon is one of the byproducts that we've tested coming out of it's basically an underground paleoplacer mine. One of the byproducts actually meets international shotcrete spec aggregate. So instead of putting it back in the ground, let's bag it and sell it and distribute it from here. So those are the types of things that our lab is very good. We've actually confirmed that it works, and it looks very promising. Again, partnering. I'm a big believer in partnering. There's enough work and opportunity if we're forward thinking enough for everybody to win. And we can all, I think we're a lot better, stronger working together. So in our company, we've created what we call these suites of technologies. It's not just software, although the software is quite sophisticated, for the transportation sector, the mining sector, and now servicing both of them as AI performance prediction or future predictions, which I'll go into. These are just some snapshots of some of the high-tech equipment we have for road surveying. Ground penetrating radar, laser systems. These are all things now that you can drive down the road at speed, and basically it's like an MRI for roads. You can tell everything that's in there, anything you need to know. The 3D radar system on the right-hand side was developed out of Norway. Contour, we're partnered with them, and they're interested in adopting our software systems for road prediction and design. So that's where the partnering comes in. True partnerships benefit everybody. This is us structurally testing the Edmonton airfield. We have one of 3 heavyweight deflectometers in the country. This one is traveling around quite a bit these days, testing airfields after the spring thaw. And, we can also test infrastructure streets with that as well, but you can also test airfields. You basically, with that trailer, the load impact it'll put on the runway, you can simulate a 747 type aircraft. So that's the technology. This is the City of Hamilton. We did a lot of work for them and segmenting up their road infrastructure. Red is bad, green is good, yellow is keep an eye on it. So driving down the road, you can basically segment up the good sections and the bad sections and help optimize your budget. The problem is, and I see the city manager is here, and he probably lived this a lot, we as road engineers, our tendency is to put the money on the worst first. Sometimes you're better off just let the worst go, do a full rehab on it, but preserve what you've got. And you get a lot more bang for your buck in a true preservation maintenance cycle. And that's what this technology helps us make those decisions. Digital twinning, like I said, you can map roads both on surface and subsurface with the technology that's available, utilities, see where they're leaking, all that type of stuff. The lab facility in Saskatoon we have is probably in terms of commercial, civil, and mining labs would be in the top 3 in North America. That's the type of lab that I'm looking at setting up in Quesnel to service the BC market. BC on the infrastructure and mining side, I think, is going to be very proactive in the future. They always have been. I've worked in agencies across the country, and BC has always been fairly proactive on the road side. This technology fits well into what they do. Modeling, we can forward predict performance of pavements. It's pretty much chug and plug now for us. A lot of agencies, we launched this system last year at the Transportation Association of Canada meeting in Quebec City, and agencies are starting to line the work up for it because we all have the same problem. We've got more roads to fix than we have money. And for every dollar we spend on roads can't be spent on community shelters or healthcare or education. So we have an obligation to optimize those dollars. And that's what this technology does. We've got some very good trained people, engineers and lab technicians that can train other people. We have very good internal systems and procedures that it's very easy for us now to train other people. As long as they have the right attitude, have a little bit of mathematical background from high school, we can train them. And they'll be up and running in about 3 months. That's how robust our systems are now. It's designed for the masses. And how we do that is very good equipment. We've searched the world, and our lab has brought together the best materials testing equipment there is. And that's why we're in the top 5 for sure in North America in terms of mechanistic methods, advanced training, advanced testing. And we can take research grade testing and make it mass production. That's kind of our unique thing. So it's very doable. It's not pie in the sky stuff. It took us 20 years to get there, but we're there now. We do all concrete testing, asphalt testing, soils testing. We pioneered recycle crushing in City of Saskatoon and in Saskatchewan. And if you actually recycle asphalt and concrete, it's a superior system to conventional pit run aggregates. And you're preserving your aggregate sources, and these perform better. So I don't know what you do for recycling of your current infrastructure, but do not throw that material away because it's very good material. Our road modeling is full 3D, finite element numerical methods. We've been developing this for about 25 years. We can model anything. City of, or County of Strathcona is adopting this model to model very special heavy loads that go through their facility and their roads, on the way up to Fort Mac. And we had a meeting with them today again on some things, and they're pushing forward because they have a true utility model that they actually charge for these extra weights. They just don't know what to charge because you have to base it on some kind of damage to your infrastructure. This helps them with that. That's an example of how they can actually make money with it. Something probably pretty near and dear to the folks around here is forestry. Notorious is about transport cost. And we've worked, the truck on the right is in Finland. They had to overhaul their transport policies to save their industry. The truck on the left was Saskatchewan. We went to road train type systems to try and save some of the areas of forestry there. But with the price of fuel and cost of equipment, you have to try and figure out how to transport it more cost effectively. These type of super loads we can model, predict the damage of them, reroute them, those types of things. So that's more on the transportation side of what we do. On the mining side, basically all the same sort of technology, very data-driven, modeling-driven, but few little spins on it. This is actually Len's mine out at Wing Dam. We've done a lot of modeling for him on that. But tailings reclamation, tailings are not a bad material. In my view, there shouldn't be a mine producing tailings anywhere. You can use tailings for ground support if you just engineer it properly. And we've done that successfully in over a dozen mines. So big resource tailings piles, we get to the point we actually go in and harvest the tailings piles and get them back into ground support. We can fluidize ground support systems so they set up. We can bring in systems that'll save mines. This was a mine in the U.S., a big salt mine, and it had a huge inflow, and we actually came within about a month of, or they came within a month of losing it. We were brought in on the team to help save that mine, and we actually accomplished that. We established some different backfill and grouting technologies, kept the water back long enough so that they could build bulkheads and save the mine. This one we're pretty proud of. That was a $2 billion asset that was saved. Our modeling and backfill systems, we can model anything. Our 3D model, you can go and walk around in the mine. We can change up the mine plan. We can do all kinds of things. Shotcrete systems, we're very good at that, and that's where using local materials for that and export it out of here is one thing we're thinking of for ground support. We've done a lot of work with that. This is Wing Dam Mine water inflow management. We're partnered with a company out of Wisconsin, and we've engineered specialty foam grouts for the mining sector to take them to that next level. We're going to be taking those internationally. I would see Quesnel being a distribution center for that as well. There's just some more backfill pictures. This is our lab vice president of engineering and one of HMI's chemists in Wisconsin working together developing these types of mining ground support and water inflow management systems. And HMI exports that material worldwide. So we've got the international rights to the things that we've developed for them. And we're going to use Quesnel as the distribution. You're in the epicenter of mining here. So we could do some good things here. Our modeling technology, talked about AI, forward prediction of performance, and that's becoming almost a de facto standard now in mine planning and things like that. The other thing we found with some of the tailings here is the old geologists from the 80s at Fraser said, check it for rare earths. And he was pretty much ahead of his time because that's when rare earths really wasn't a thing. And sure enough, we took some of the tailings and tested them, and it looks like they are testing positive for rare earth elements in the same system. So if you're handling all this material anyway to get the gold out of it, you might as well just add in another stream and get the rare earths out of it. So those are the types of things that technology is available now, this day and age. And some of the systems we've developed actually require manufacturing specialty equipment. We would manufacture that here in Quesnel to service this market and industry. So we're thinking full turnkey, and we're thinking pretty big. So the market, again, it's a global mineral super cycle. Everybody needs it. Everybody wants them. We got to have our own to be self-sufficient, and there's no reason why we can't be. Quesnel is to me, is a mining epicenter in central BC, no question. You guys are very well positioned here. When you look at the map where the mines are, and these are just the mines we know about, there's still going to be lots come on. This is a very sustainable long-term business play if we put our heads together. The mine ground support materials distribution center is something we've done. We've trucked, hundreds of thousands of tons of shotcrete all over the place, and these are systems that mines need, and they use up a lot of it. So we might as well be making it here. Our mechanistic lab will be a support center lab, but also a training lab. We'll bring people in, train them in these systems, and give them a career opportunity in these types of material science. And again, partnerships very welcomed by NASCO and Lataco. They're keen on it, and they're like everybody else. We're just looking for better opportunities for our young people and future generations. And the technology play is the way that we have to do it. We have to go. It's just the way the world's going. And that's kind of one of the things that we identified 20 years ago, and now it's finally starting to get traction in the industry in a major way. So we're quite happy to be here. We like partnering and working with people at all levels, academia, government, Indigenous, local young people, giving people opportunity. Things change. People lose jobs, and what we have to try and do is set up and facilitate opportunity. And then it's up to them to take it or not. But without opportunity, it's harder to get things done. So anyway, that's what I see as a sustainable business opportunity for ourselves, the local community, and the city of Quesnel itself, and I think BC as a whole. And we'll probably be exporting into other places out of here as well. So that was my presentation.
Thank you, David, and well done. Very, very exciting, very, very interesting. I wish we could have more time with you tonight, but we've got a big agenda here. But I am going to open the floor up to council questions. I'm going to go to Councillor Runge, then Councillor Vic, and then Councillor Elliott.
Hey, I think this is great. We could spend more time on this. Curtis, I really appreciate the presentation. So for us, I guess the question hopefully would come is, we know we need opportunities here. How do we get going on stuff like this? So, between everybody, how do we move things like this forward? And, I think you're going to have a fairly supportive council to support you in a lot of these things. I think they're quite exciting. I love dabbling in stuff like this anyway, technology and stuff. My daughter's in engineering, so this is
good for her.
So this is actually quite exciting. Hey, I hope we can make something like this work, because I think it'd be great.
Well, we're going to make it work. The opportunity's here.
Yeah, and we have some great sites too.
Oh, for sure. And I thank the mayor for a letter of support. You say how we get started. The Fraser mine is kind of one of the anchor things to get this thing launched, and the provincial government is understaffed in the permitting office. There's a lot more permits going in. I feel for those folks, but we're hoping that with the support from Lataco and NASCO, they've written letters, your mayor's written a letter of support, that we can hopefully nudge Victoria along and get a little bit to the front of the line in terms of permitting, so we can get this program launched and get it going. So, but the center itself, we're actually already looking at properties and thinking through how we're going to set that up, because the need is there right now.
Yeah, and with regards to the center, I'm just thinking, how can we actually use this center actually to also get people from various areas? We have a limited source of students, even with all our Indigenous students, and this is actually a really big project, so that we have the ability to have, this is where we have to talk with Tanya. How do we get housing and everything going so that students coming in here are being trained so that we actually build this as an epicenter? I think it's a wonderful idea.
Yeah, right on.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Vic.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you. Really interesting discussion. I guess to get right to it, so what's your timeline, and how does the municipality get involved?
Well,
what are you thinking?
Len and I are already starting to talk to some of the local mines here to start looking at some purchase orders and looking at getting things set up. We've looked at a couple of properties already here, so we're hoping so direct to your question, would be late summer and the fall. We're hoping that we would have a ribbon cutting ceremony, and let's get this thing going. Yeah, the need is there, so it's the business is there. Now it's up to us to catch up.
Councillor Elliott.
Thank you, and I am cognizant of time, but this is, I must admit, when I was studying the report to begin with, I didn't get it. I mean, it would be impossible for you to write down everything that's taken place with all these pictures, but now this is one of the most exciting things that I've seen in a long time. Most of my questions have been asked as far as timeline and how we can help. But just quickly, do you think, and it's exciting about the partnerships too, but I know you're thinking long-term, what kind of employment numbers do you see projected?
Well, I think the mine itself, our numbers are around just running single shift. All in is about 28 people producing shotcrete and running the mine. In the distribution center, HMI's distribution center in Wisconsin, not including their manufacturing, probably employs 30 to 35. The business model that's worked well in our company is because sometimes we end up creating a system that's very difficult for mines to implement right off the cuff. So what they typically end up entering into is a contract for design, supply, implement. And that's where we've actually done quite well. So, in a mine where they're putting in ground support constantly and whatnot, now you end up having mobile crews running around. That can get quite big. Now you're getting into the few hundred people quite quickly. Because when mines make a decision to go, they go. And with like I say, the value of minerals now, they'll throw money at it. So if it provides value, they're going to go with it for sure.
Fantastic, Curtis. I'm really glad that you came here and educated us on this. Some of the equipment that you're using is just mind-boggling. I mean, it's super exciting. So if there's anything else that the city can do, I understand the letter of support from the mayor, and I appreciate that. But we can push for UBCM and things, anything that you need, just let us know and keep us in the loop. This is great.
Yeah, for sure. Well, the University of Northern BC with your facility just over here, for the first time, I come here for 5 years. I just saw it last time I was out. There's a partnership there and a training certification, those types of things. Again, putting my academic hat on, those are things that academics or academic institutions in the country have to start doing, is a lot more partnering with hands-on. So the certification side, particularly dealing with some remote folks like our Indigenous communities and whatnot, this is all doable.
Yeah, fantastic. And yeah, I mean, we've seen that, we all know that we have to diversify, and other mines are doing it, and there, a lot of people are getting employed. So yeah, working through the college and employing more people around here, and this being the epicenter of British Columbia, I mean,
there's a lot of work around here.
That could be fantastic, and thanks to staff for the hard work on this too. Thanks, Curtis.
Yep, thank you. Thank you for your time.
Don't go away, we're not done yet. I've got a question for you. Did you have a question? I've got one more, Councillor.
Oh.
Yeah, we'll be done by midnight, it's okay.
Thank you.
Sorry, I thought we were wrapped up.
No worries, Curtis. Thank you for the presentation. It is very, very exciting, and I like what you're saying. Can you expand a little bit on the manufacturing opportunities that would
Sure.
come out of this? Thank you.
The delivery of some of the materials, the ground support systems, I'll use shotcrete as an example. The best type of shotcrete systems need an underground plant with the proper controls, tankage, those types of things. The systems that we've developed and implemented in several mines actually work quite well. So we've got, I think, sitting in our server right now, probably 38 unique designs for just the mining side. I've got a number of ideas on the road infrastructure side, and even more on just general aggregate processing, that type of thing that serves into all of this. So at one time, our manufacturing shop was employing about a dozen people just for the few little projects we had going on at the time. So again, that's another spin-off of good-paying jobs, and with forestry, up in there, a lot of these mills have got very good, well-trained people, and it's kind of the same sort of work. You build things to design drawings and plans. So that's something that based out of here, and then you can go to a mine with a full turnkey package and the people to run it for them, because they've got lots of other things to worry about, not implementing new technology. So that's the little niche that we found works quite well.
Okay, I have a quick question about the locally produced, or the notion of locally produced shotcrete. And would you be producing that for your own use or for sale to other enterprises?
Both.
Both.
Yep. But the big sell would be for other mines in the area. Our mine is fairly stable, so we're fairly fortunate there with that mine. But the other mines that are in bad ground, that they use a lot of shotcrete. It's nothing for a mine to be using a B train a day.
So these other mines within the region, where would they procure that shotcrete from now?
It's either coming from the lower mainland, Edmonton has a facility, and north of Winnipeg has a pretty good facility. So in that case, what I would probably do is go over and talk to Dave at United Concrete, get the cement from Dave. He's from Rosetown, by the way, originally, in Saskatchewan, but the nice guy, knows concrete in and out, built our backfill systems that we used for Len at Wingdam on a few instances. I still remember he was kind of raising his eyebrow a bit, thinking, this isn't going to work, but it worked. So we get along good with Dave. But there's things that we would buy from him, the cement and things like that, but the aggregate we would produce. Now, we may have to top it up with some specialty aggregates, and he's very good at the manufacturing. So you've got a good resource there, too, and we would partner with them. So
yeah, if you can strike up a partnership with United, that's a win-win. So
absolutely.
So again, I don't see any more questions, so thank you. We will be in touch. We're looking forward to making things happen.
Well, thank you for having me. You have a nice community here, and thank you for your letter, Mayor.
Thank you. Okay, so we have no items arising from previous special closed meetings. We're going to now move into reports from both committee and staff. First one is item 1, committee report. Policy and Bylaw Committee meeting held May 28. Councillor Runge to report.
Sorry, I thought this was a union shop and I got to have a break. All righty, guys. This is the Policy and Bylaw Committee update from May 28th, 2026. So during this bylaw, we had following some requests to the bylaw department. We discussed temporary structures, size, site locations, maintenance standards, possible processes, considerations for variances, and how to formally incorporate a fabric-covered structure into the temporary accessory structures bylaw. So this is really for reference only. I'm not sure if you guys read it, but we do want to, we wanted to look at the structures. If we're going to permit them, where, how do we keep them so that they follow with the form and character of the community, and, and how can we offer variances? So we directed staff to look at those things, and they're going to come back to us with a bylaw for us to look at again and bring to you. We just want to let you guys know that this is what we're looking at right now. And we've also directed staff to update the public-facing garage and accessory building planning kit that the public sees to incorporate an educational guide explicitly detailing the regulatory requirements for fabric covered structures, so that, is there a time when, it's time for you to replace that fabric. And finally, we directed staff to review and bring it back to one of our meetings. The other thing that we looked at was our policy review for a vapor retail store. We once again we put work to the our committee here to staff to make amendments to the city bylaw. So the recommendation was that the city that we want to think about is that we direct staff to draft amendments to the city Quesnel zoning bylaw 1980, 2025 to establish a distance of 300 meters between any two vape retail stores. And our next meeting, for those who are excited, was last week. So sorry, we'll see you again in a couple of weeks.
Okay, thank you for that. So there's a lot of staff direction in there, and this will ultimately all come back to council when we look at amending bylaws and so on and so forth. Tanya, did you have anything you wanted to add at this point? No?
No, and really, you may be approached by someone with regards to those temporary structures, and so the idea was we really want to. In a perfect world, I'd love to separate the bylaw. So we have our smaller temporary structure or structures that you have in your garages and things like that, and then we have those tents. so that if someone wants to put up a tent to cover a car in the winter, where does that go? What policy does it have to follow? That's really what we were talking about. So it's if you guys have any questions, please fire them at us now. But it's really more, this is here for the public to know that this is what we're talking about also. And with regards to the vape stores, when we have a grouping of vape stores and one shuts down and another opens up in the exact same building, there's no policy in place for us actually to say, hey, you know what, we actually want to look at some of those things possibly. So that's where that comes from.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to Councillor Elliott now.
Okay, thank you. Okay, just on the fabric and stuff, couldn't that just be looked at through a bylaw perspective on nuisance properties? Isn't that the same kind of thing? Like clean your yard up?
Does anyone from...
Well, I can, no, because we actually have no real policies in place. So let's say you have a backyard that's half an acre full and you just want to put temporary structures in place and they're all nice and neat and stuff like that. We have no policy that's clean with that. Various communities have processes, hey, 250 square feet, 300 square feet, 1,000 square feet. So that's what we were discussing, size, what they look like, where they are. We have rules in place with regards to buildings that shouldn't be in the front of the house, or they should be with the form and character of the community area that they're in. So it was just to clean that up. I mean, that's really where we were.
Okay, thanks. And then am I correct in saying that the bylaw right now for vape and marijuana is a kilometer, right?
Tanya?
There is no distance for vape, and that's what we're adding with this policy. There is a maximum number of vape stores, but there's no separation distance.
But there is for the dispensaries, correct?
Yeah, totally different, yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, anyone else before we move along? Okay, so now we will go to item number 2, committee report, June 9th, Airport Advisory Committee. As the chair, it's up to me to report. The committee discussed and agreed that Dave Edwards, Quesnel Flying Club, be appointed as a member for the remainder of the team, because of the committee rather, because we did have another member that was retiring, and the recommendation is coming later. Director Norburn informed the committee that Pacific Coastal Airlines suspended operations as of June 12, and their lease will be terminated at the end of, or sometime in July. The operating budget and passenger statistic update for the first quarter of 2026 was discussed, and basically it all rendered down to what to expect with upcoming discontinuation of service to and from Quesnel with Pacific Coastal Airlines. The 2026 capital budget update included airport capital assistance program funding was not approved for the loader blower, and staff will reapply for 2027. There was discussion on the audit obstacle limitation surfaces, that stands for OLS, update, and basically that is removal of such things as trees and limbs and so on that are obscuring the flight path. So that's an ongoing project, and surveying work and logging has already been completed, and the plan will be made with direction from HM Aero Aviation Consulting. The airport strategic goals and subdivision update was discussed, and that's a work in progress. The business plan update, Supervisor Grant advised the committee that the master plan, funded 70% through British Columbia Air Access Program, BCAAP. You got to know that anything associated with airports, they love acronyms, has completed the request for proposals, the RFP process, and HM Aero Aviation Consulting was awarded the contract to prepare the plan. There was a roundtable, and the staff will work with the Quesnel Flying Club and BC Wildfire to find a solution with the gazebo that is presently located on the BC Wildfire initial attack lease. The recommendation to council is that Dave Edwards of the Quesnel Flying Club be appointed as a member for the remainder of the committee's term, and as the chair, I will move that, looking for a seconder. Councillor Vic, any discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Wonderful. Okay, then we go to the next.
Mr. Mayor, can I ask a question?
Sorry, I skipped question.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, if you don't mind. First of all, really disappointed that the one airline is leaving after just a year. They did a year of prep work to figure it out, and I think one of the challenges that I saw right at the beginning is that their schedules were the same. They're within an hour of each other, and for me as a business model, you know, and none of them ran on Sundays. Like, I mean, yeah, so that for me was disappointing highly. You mentioned that the passenger stats were provided. I think council would love to see those.
I think those passenger stats were actually published with the agenda. So, I mean, and I think anybody could pull that up off of the agenda, and
I missed that 100%.
It's online.
Okay.
Okay.
And then the same thing is the subdivision update on there too?
I don't know that there's any, I can't recall if there's anything specific on there, but certainly, you know, the subdivision is a work in progress, and, you know, if you want to sit down and talk exactly where we're at, you know, and the subdivision also involves the road right of way and proper gazetting of the road right of way accessing the airport. So it's a multi-pronged fork, if you will.
Yeah, no problem. It's just if there's anything substantive and any progress that's been made, then that'd be great. But I think it's a slow burn, this one.
It is a slow burn, and, you know, in today's inflationary times, it's an extra slow burn.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Runge.
Hey, since it was opened, point number 6, your roundtable with regards to the gazebo. Can you expand a little there? Because I spoke with the fire crew there, and they're actually not aware of that either. For people that don't know, that gazebo is placed right in the lot that where they train. It's a training facility for our firefighters right now, and it's been boarded up a little bit from the side to protect from the wind. They work out in there, and then they have meetings in there every morning. So it's actually fully utilized by the fire crew. So for me, I'm curious what the issue is there. I know it was built. I checked out. You know, when I was up there, I looked at it was built with some grant there multiple years ago. It sits on BC Wildfire property right now, and is being utilized by them. So what are we asking for that, like as a city?
Well, what we're trying to do is get I guess there's two options. One is that we would get a new gazebo because the forestry department is using the gazebo that is really physically the property of the Quesnel Flying Club, even though it was located on forestry property at the time, and it was unused forestry property at the time, but now with the expansion of the forestry initial attack base activities out there, that gazebo is being used now by forestry. So there are two options. One is that a new gazebo or a replacement gazebo be found and erected on airport property, public property, for the use of the flying club. And the real reason for that gazebo in the first place was to give shelter for transiting pilots and passengers, like in private small aircraft, to get out of the rain and maybe even camp for the night, because we don't have regular taxi service or transit service out there. And so we found that was quite useful in that regard. So the airport manager is working hard to get this resolved so that the flying club can continue with the use of a gazebo for their purposes.
So might I suggest that this gazebo wasn't used by the flying club for, I think, close to 15 years, plus 15 years. It is now fenced, and you know what I'd suggest to the wildfire service, if you really, and it's not, we have more than one option, you know, honestly. This gazebo's been sitting there for years. They could also be charging them rent because it's on their property, so we have to be careful what we wish for here. And we have two very important groups here, so maybe there's another way to do that without kind of leaving that gazebo out and saying, hey, is there another option here that we can all work on collectively versus putting another group into something that have been utilizing it for over a decade, I'm sure. You know, I could ask them how long, and so we're not getting that confrontation that, in my mind, is kind of unnecessary. And we kind of say, well, how many times are they using it? Is there an opportunity at the airport possibly for the club to use it? Is there another option, another more positive option? That, because this always sounds like, hey, we got to find a solution with BC Wildfire, and I'm telling you, when I talked to BC Wildfire, you know, just think, because it came up previously. Most of them had no idea what they were talking about, that this was even in the discussion. But what I did see, it being used extensively for the new students that are going there, the new teams and everything. So just, you know, heads up, and I would be a little leery about what we did. So advice to anybody who's working with that.
Go ahead, City Manager.
Yeah, just to clarify, I did speak with the head of BC Wildfire over there recently. He's well-versed in this situation, so he does understand it, even if some of his employees don't. So the gazebo was originally built and donated by the Flying Club, so it's not an asset of the cities. It was located on property that was previously the airport's, but obviously with the expansion of the BC Wildfire Service, previously now the gazebo is in there. BC Wildfire Service has communicated to us and that they had actually offered to the gazebo before the expansion of their property for the Flying Club to move the gazebo. At that point in time, the Flying Club did not want to move the gazebo. They weren't that interested in it. As soon as the fence went up, this became a conversation, right? At this point in time, the city does not have money in its capital plan to build a new gazebo. I'm certain that Tommy is working with them on, if you want to relocate this to another location at the airport, we'll try and find a location. But really, it's an issue between BC Wildfire Service and the Flying Club.
Oh, I'm sorry. This never really became a problem until the fence went up. So we are slowly trying to resolve it. I thought I had another question. Councillor Vic. Sorry, were you done, Councillor Runge?
I'll have a question afterwards.
Okay, now I'm going to Councillor Vic.
So switching gears to the last item on our agenda, which is a letter from the Mayor of Castlegar. I feel that these are connected with this report, and that I'm sure your committee is going to analyze this letter, and I think there's a lot of elements to this letter which are very, very pertinent to our situation at our airport, and I hope we can echo this with a similar lobby effort to the province. Thank you.
Yes, that letter did not make the agenda for the last airport meeting because that letter just came in today, and I actually asked that it be brought forward tonight so that we can respond and support that letter from the municipality that originated that petition. Anyone else?
Can I just have a comment?
Okay, go ahead.
So my comment goes to the legality of all these things, because we've been involved with this for a number of times. It's come to council, we've discussed it, it's come from our airport committee on which we stand. That's why I was bringing it up, that there I think is a cleaner way to do this that doesn't make it confrontational in between the two.
Okay, well said, and I'll take that back to the airport manager, or staff will. Okay, so the next one is committee report, June 10th, Governance and Strategy Committee, and that one falls to me as well. And the purpose of this report is to provide council with a summary of the June 10, 2026 Governance and Strategy Committee meeting. Topics discussed: 2026 City of Quesnel Operational Plan. The city received for information the updated 2026 operational plan and recommended that staff create a page on the city website containing basic information about the city's policies and regulations regarding unsightly and nuisance properties. And I see that is already underway. Thank you for that. Next was water treatment grant priorities. City Manager McKay presented the water treatment grant priorities for the report for the committee for information. And there is a recommendation coming for reference. This recommendation is for reference, but a report will come to council. Long-term shelter and cold and severe weather planning. Well, we certainly talked that one to death, or we will be at this committee meeting or at this council meeting. The committee reviewed information on the long-term shelter and cold severe weather planning and provided feedback to continue working towards refining a long-term strategy and accompanying plan. And again, there is a recommendation for reference, and that will come back to council. Animal control services. The committee reviewed the report on discontinuation of animal control services by the BC Society for Prevention of Cruelty to Animals. It was noted that Quesnel is not the only community concerned about future animal control services in view of withdrawal of SPCA services. And so that is an ongoing discussion. Water treatment grant priorities. There is a recommendation that the Governance and Strategy Committee recommends the water treatment grant priorities report be referred to Council for information and feedback. And basically what we're looking for here is, when are we going to do this? Are we going to put in a grant application now, before the next local government election, which comes on October the 17th, or are we going to leave this to a new council? I submit that as soon as we put in a grant application, that is a signal that we are moving forward with this very, very expensive program, and we've got a lot of other infrastructural priorities on the list, and we need to have a council discussion to sort of pinpoint where would the water treatment project fit within the grand scheme of things. Am I right with that, City Manager? Okay. So the next one was long-term shelter and plan and cold weather planning, that the Governance and Strategy Committee endorses staff to develop an agreement to utilize 345 Elliott Street for a warming center due to new capacity that has been realized and planned resources at the site, and that the committee endorsed staff continuing to work towards a long-term shelter strategy. Do we need that as a resolution, or I mean, we're already well underway with that one. I'll come back to.
I have a comment to that, though.
Okay, go ahead.
So I don't want a resolution with this at all, because to me that should have been referred to council for discussion prior to it being endorsed as a plan for staff to work on. I really believe this issue is bigger than just a comment like this. I don't, to have it referred and that we're moving ahead with this, that does not currently get my endorsement. It should be referred to us for discussion.
Well, like I say, the mandate of the Governance and Strategy Committee is to look at all of these things and try to help guide them through, and that's exactly what we're doing. With regard to animal control services, there's a recommendation that the Governance and Strategy Committee recommends to refer for information and discussion to Council the Animal Control Services report on the discontinuation of animal control services by the BC Society for the Prevention of Cruelty to Animals, and that there's a typo in there. It says government, but it's the Governance Strategy Committee recommends that Council direct staff to amend the animal, bird, and insect control and licensing bylaw to remove sections establishing the pound and pound keeper. And that, again, is work that is on the agenda tonight. Do we have any? That concludes my report. So Councillor Goulet.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And just under the long term, I think it's utilized 395 Elliott Street. I think there's just a typo, and that's just 345 Elliott Street. Thanks. Just wanted to point that out.
Good catch. We put that in there just to see who would catch it, so you win a star. Councillor Elliott.
Thank you. Just on the water treatment and the potential of going forward with a grant, I didn't think there were any grants available for this.
There is a federal program where water treatment facilities are currently eligible. So it is, yeah. Well, no, I mean, it's a rebranded federal program that previously existed that now has these types of facilities eligible that we've been made aware of, and has triggered a bunch of conversations internally around how do we work as a team and then have a conversation with council, which is what the mayor was alerting to around prioritizing large unfunded capital projects, right? Because to the mayor's point, once you start applying, if you get funded, then you got to pay for the rest or seek other funding, that whole piece, right?
100%.
Yeah,
I don't want to put the cart before the horse, but
exactly.
But what kind of funding is it? Is it a 70-30 split or 50?
It's up to 40%. So
from who?
Feds. So the idea being that you go to feds and then you go to the province and then you try to get yourself somewhere. But what we don't have, and this will come up in future discussions, is direction at council at this point in time as to where this fits in the priority list of large unfunded capital projects, and to where from a debt servicing perspective is council, both this one and we assume the future one will have to weigh in on this too, comfortable with borrowing what percentage on a project of that magnitude.
Yep. Okay. Yeah, I have no issue. I don't want to push it forward at this point in time at all, but it's the first time I've heard that there's a grant available.
Yeah,
so that's
it's actually
exciting.
this just came up in like the last month.
Awesome. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Runge.
Yes, so how many people sat on that last committee meeting, on this meeting of strategy and bylaw? How many councillors?
I think we were all there.
I think it was two. I think it was 2 of the 3.
Oh, two of 3. I can't remember who was absent, but we did have quorum.
No, I'm okay with quorum. My issue is 2 councillors cannot endorse issues for council. They can recommend issues for council.
Okay.
It's in the wording, and it's very important.
I actually agree with you that word endorse should be just eliminated, and the word recommend, that kind of threw me as well, so.
Yeah, no problem. We'll catch that.
Yeah, that's easy. Thank you. Okay, anyone else on this one before I move on to the next item, which is the Caribou Regional District report for the board highlights for May 29, 2026. We heard from the Forest Enhancement Society of BC. There was a report on advocacy for invasive plant management. And the text is there, so I'm just gonna hit the titles and without sort of going into the detail, but certainly I welcome any comments or questions at the end. There was a discussion on the UBCM convention preparation, and this is basically an annual thing that the directors go through. The regional district directors are most of them attend the UBCM, and so they try to split themselves up and for ministerial meetings and ministerial staff meetings and so on. Mountain Bike Championship support. Grant support was approved for the 2026 BC High School Mountain Bike Championships, and that was approved. Agricultural marketing support. Funding was approved for the North Caribou Agricultural Marketing Association, FARMED, to assist with initiatives that promote local agriculture, support producers, and strengthen awareness of the region's agricultural sector. Regional Advocacy Partnership, and this is an interesting one. The board endorsed a request from the Regional District of Fraser-Fort George calling for a review of universal mental health care in Canada. By working alongside with other local governments on issues of shared concern, the CRD helps amplify regional voices and advocate for improved services and outcomes for residents across British Columbia. And I understand that there's at least one, possibly 2 maybe even more, resolutions on this particular matter that are coming forth, not from us, but from other local governments on this matter. So I'll close that one right there and open the floor to questions. Councillor Bick.
Just a quick one, Mr. Mayor. For the mountain bike championship support, can we be hopeful that we're in that? Because this is a regional district board highlight. Is Quesnel's Trails part of this BC High School Mountain Bike Championship?
I believe so. I mean, the regional district has a different setup. We don't do grants for assistance, but regional district agendas usually have between 6 and a dozen applications that are before the board for grants for assistance. And some of these grants for assistance I can't even vote on. Go ahead, Councillor. Go ahead, City Manager.
Yeah, just to clarify, that championship was actually held here in Quesnel.
Yeah, but I just wanted to say that some of these grants for assistance, because they are specific only to one or more electoral areas, I don't get to vote on them anyhow. So it's kind of a funny little system. Anything more on this one before I move along? Okay, seeing none, then I will go over the page to another report by yours truly. And this is on my attendance at the North Central Local Government Association Conference in Prince George, May 20 to 22. Ahead of the conference, I met with a modular home manufacturing company to scope out possibilities for development and construction of a new gated community for Quesnel. I will be discussing this further with staff and council. And really, when it comes to talking to a modular home manufacturing company about the notion of setting up a gated community, there's two major components to that. One is the development of the land, and the other is the actual construction of the home that will sit on the land. And it's a real challenge to sort of bring those two components together. I have a bit of a personal interest in this because my next move will be to a gated community, and there ain't none left in Quesnel. We only have one. So Wednesday morning, I attended Northern Health's annual forum, and of particular interest was the problem around mental health and substance use, not abuse by seniors, which too often goes unnoticed and therefore unassisted and untreated. Assuredly, continuing positive mention was made of the 288 bed Providence Extended Care Facility proposed for Caribou Field in West Quesnel, and it was good to hear that that is still ongoing. Wednesday afternoon, I joined a tour of the Ancient Forest Interpretive Center, 110 kilometers east of Prince George on Highway 16. This attraction is now operated by L'Hiltene First Nation and is undergoing an extensive $8 million renovation featuring leading-edge technology and solar power. If you're ever out that way, go and have a look at it. It really is a sight to behold. On the economic spin-off side, it was encouraging to see Quesnel contractors hard at work on this project. And I knew that they were Quesnel contractors because their trucks were all over the place. So that was a good sign. Thursday morning saw the opening ceremonies, annual general meeting, financials, board nominations, and resolutions. There were 40 resolutions that were voted upon, with only one resolution falling to defeat. Encouragingly, Caribou Regional District Resolution R19 was adopted as amended, calling on senior governments and the Federation of Canadian Municipalities to advocate for and, in part, advance Highway 97 road safety projects, including the Highway 97 North-South Interconnector project at Quesnel. On that note, I was asked by several delegates how we were doing with the interconnector project, to which I replied, we're not giving up. Thursday afternoon started with an update on the UBCM M Board of Governance Review, and it is noted that UBCM executive is considering basing membership dues on a formula based on population and overall assessment rather than on population alone, which means a moderate increase on our UBCM membership fees. This session featured speaker/consultant Alan Nielsen, a former City of Quesnel senior manager. Alan and I enjoyed reconnecting after more than 25 years. Next, I participated in a session on recreation and sport in northern BC led by Engage Sport North that helps northern communities strengthen local sport and physical activities programs. I was proud of the several of their references to their positively continuing work with our own recreation department. This session reminded me of to appreciate and measure the economic value of sport at all levels in our community. For example, how about measuring and maximizing present and potential economic value that our various recreation and parks facilities generate? Include equine sport at Alec Fraser Park. I don't know how many times I look at Alec. I drive by there every day. Now that the bridge is closed, I have to drive by there every day, and I'm just amazed at how many gymkhanas and how many roping and how many riding events there are outside of the rodeo, and that certainly brings economic development to town. And I guess in closing, on that one, I would say that we are so fortunate that Quesnel is so centrally located and therefore easily sport accessible throughout the province. In summary, I feel we benefit best from local regional value by attending and interacting with NCLGA as compared to UBCM. While the UBCM is more effective in the global picture, NCLGA is closest to the ground, closest to the local ground. So that concludes my report, and certainly I'm open to comments and questions. Okay, then we will move along then to Councillor Rudenberg obviously is not here, so her report is next up. I'm not going to go through it, but certainly it's there, and if anyone wants it brought back or has a question or a comment relative to the report, you're welcome to make that question directly to Councillor Rudenberg or ask that question at the next meeting that she's in attendance at. The next one is a staff report from the Director of Development Services, Long-Term Shelter Plan and Cold Weather Planning. And there is I think, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6-point recommendation there. So I'm going to turn it over to Tanya to deliver this report.
Thank you, Mayor. Again, this report does deal with 3 topics, but of course they're very intricately related as to why we're presenting them together. The long-term shelter planning aspect, and a number of these conversations interacted with our earlier presentation tonight, and hopefully some of this will provide some clarity as to how these are separate initiatives but related. The long-term shelter planning is occurring much to Mr. Sheach's report today because the current shelter at 146 Carson is not adequate in size, condition, or location. Staff are seeking endorsement to work with BC Housing to establish a long-term plan for new shelter space in the community. And I think this was the public fronting work that we're going to be doing and that's presented in the report as an appendix, and that we're looking for endorsement from council on the approach that we're going to take with that. The attached plan, again, is provided for your reference. I don't know if you'd want me to stop in each one of these, or do you want me to just carry through the whole report and talk about them all at the end?
Yeah, so what's council's pleasure on this? Because I know that we're not going to get through all of this tonight, but do you think that we should just go piecemeal and see how far we get with this? I know that I'm going to be suggesting that at least one or two of these recommendations be delayed until July or August, because if we're going to try to, resolve all of this here in one night, it'll go into tomorrow. That's for sure. What's council's pleasure? Councillor Vic.
Well, obviously, a few of us want to weigh in on this. Obviously, I think the one that I think requires a little bit more deliberation and community feedback is, I guess it would be the third recommendation about continuing the temporary shelter under the permit. I think that requires more discussion, more information from BC Housing or the Shelter Society, and I think it needs more time to percolate in the community. This agenda came out on Friday. I don't think the community's seen this, honestly. So by virtue of the fact that we've talked about it tonight, and it will be, the content of this meeting will be publicized, I think it will spur some discussion. And I think we should maybe table that one for at least a couple of weeks.
That's numbered on that list. They're not numbered, but it's
I know. I've numbered it number
one.
3. Yeah.
Okay. I'm coming back to you in a minute. Are you?
I think I'm done for now.
Okay.
I think some of these I think we should try and work through, but the number, in my view, number 3, the third one, requires more work than I think we can provide tonight.
Okay. So Tanya, when you're continuing with your report, or you're sort of go ahead.
Thank you. Yes, I'm giving the report. I'm not actually going to the recommendations yet, of which, of course, the third and fourth recommendations are pretty clearly going to be tabled. The other aspect is that the Quesnel Shelter and Support Society was not able to make their presentation, so we were well aware that we were going to need to table those when we had a more fulsome discussion after those, and setting of a new meeting, whether that be a special meeting, which I think, given council's desire to really weigh in, the special meeting is probably the way to go. So scheduling that with the groups as well to be present at that time. But I was going to go through the report anyway, go over the highlights of it. Again, having it read and discussed or presented at least tonight gives some time to percolate and go back to that reporting later on.
Okay, Councillor Runge, did you have something there?
I'm okay. We'll listen to that.
Your mic was off.
I'm sorry, just, I agree, if we can put this on the table here, and then we can come up with what kind of recommendations are to be tabled, or when we discuss tabling of them.
Okay, I'm going to go to Councillor Goulet now.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And yeah, I was, there's some pieces here. I think there's 3 that should probably be the second, third, and fourth should be, I think, tabled for more robust discussion, I think, and just so we can move forward. But I think receiving the report and giving direction that we look at a long-term shelter strategy for the community are very important. Those are steps for us to move forward. And the others, I think we can table for a period of time and have a more robust conversation. That's how I just feel, and then we can move forward then. And give a timeline on this, because, sorry, we did hear from the presentation that he would be open to giving some time, so let's use that to how we can to have those conversations and be able to engage in that. So just my thoughts.
Okay, I'm going to come back to you, Councillor Goulet, for those numbers, because I'm not keeping track here. I'm not able to keep track which ones we're tabling. I think Councillor Elliott, you want it on?
Yep.
Go ahead.
Yes, thank you. I'm okay with tabling 3 and 4, but I don't see any need to table 2. It's just the plan. But that's my...
Okay, so are we okay then by tabling number 3 and 4 and trying to plow through the other 4? Go ahead, Councillor Runge.
Yeah, so just for clarification, we're receiving the cold weather plan right now, because that they may actually okay, thank you. Yes, sir.
Okay, Tanya, do you want to continue on?
Thank you, yeah. And we'll just continue with the reporting and going through the comments, and we will go back to the recommendation and worry about whether we're receiving or anything at the recommendation stage. So the question to council was, for the long-term plan, there is a report in the back about our strategy for working with BC Housing on a long-term plan and the community. And I'm just wanting to make sure that council doesn't have any questions about that before moving on from that.
Okay, so any questions on that one? Councillor Runge.
This is where we're going to start to convolute things. I think we're missing some partners in that plan there. So do those come up now, or because that's where I think more thought has to be given to it. It's like, to me, I didn't see the school district in here. I didn't see, is there a way to have a community liaison? Those types of things are just things that I think should be discussed later.
Okay, I'm going to go to city manager, and he's going to try to bail us out of this one here.
Okay, thank you for that, Mr. Mayor. What I would recommend is that you let Tanya go through her report. She'll summarize each of the key pieces, which will then allow it to be on the record, and then some of these key pieces we know you're likely to table tonight can then percolate in the community for a couple of weeks. You can provide us some feedback on the items that you're probably just going to receive. Remember that you can still weigh in between meetings on things at a more operational level of, hey, have you considered consulting with this group? Could you add that? So that can come in the form of an email as well. But I would recommend to council right now, let's turn it over to Tanya, let her get her piece out so it's on the record, and then we can move through each of the recommendations on which ones you want to receive, which ones you want to table.
Perfect. Okay, Tanya, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you. Maybe I'll just go through the rest of the report, and then we'll go to the recommendation after that. So the second item on this report is the temporary shelter, and the discussion around the temporary shelter. As council is well aware, temporary shelter was permitted last year to be used for the year. The council did require that BC Housing come back to council, and the reporting that was requested was that they bring back issues and concerns identified during the operation of the site as an emergency shelter, progress on working with staff to establish a new site following the end of the temporary use permit, and 3 impacts on Northern Health Services administered from the site, and the 4th and final, it was demand on the shelter services experienced during its operation. So some of that was presented tonight, and again, Quesnel Shelter and Support Society will be present again. That'll get a more fulsome discussion when we make that next meeting date. And obviously the discussion around the continued use of 395 Elliott for the additional 2-year term will occur and have more fulsome discussion at a next meeting that will be established for that purpose. So I'm going to move on from that. The cold weather plan. The cold weather plan was an initiative initiated by the city. The cold weather plan is really about city operations in cold weather events. These are events that we can obtain funding from Emergency Management BC for the operation of warming centers, and that it's a different use, or it's a different program than BC Housing, and so we utilize this funding to develop a plan so that in future years we can identify how we operate these centers and any other kind of communications, et cetera, we'd want to do around cold weather events. At the end of the consultation period, or the consultants' work on this, a location was still not identified for a cold weather site. It was only following their termination and completion of the report that this new site came up as an option, which is why we added it to this report here. It complicates that discussion about where we're going to put the warming center, but the rest of the plan definitely talks about the things that we need to do. I don't see a reason to table it. It's receiving the plan and working towards its meeting the objectives that they put in that plan and the tasks, one of which is identifying a site, but it doesn't mean that we're approving that site tonight, if that makes any sense to council.
Go ahead, Councillor Runge.
Yeah, so just to your last point, why is there a reason why we have just one site versus multiple sites because there are, even in the plan, there's multiple sites suggested. Is there a way for us to get that contract to EMC, so I think it's EMC, through whoever it is that we have to get the contract to, and so that we can actually offer various groups to run this?
Well, EMCR, and it's not technically a contract with them. We declare an emergency, and then we develop contracts with other agencies so that we can utilize it in those emergency situations. So the issue is that we have not been able to identify any sites nor anyone who wants to provide the warming center facilities. So that's been throughout the whole period of developing this warming center plan. There was not sites, anyone that was involved, or providers that were wanting to take this on.
So going back to my question, because I believe that we may actually have some sites in the city if we are able to get funded for various things. I don't know what the funding criteria are. Then why couldn't we use some of our possibly underutilized sites? And I don't know if there are some. This is just a question. And why aren't we? And if it is known in the community, whether it's a church or another community hall or other societies. Is there maybe this might be a perfect time to say, hey, look, we're looking for X number of sites that potentially could get.
That's what the whole cold weather planning did, and there was none identified, nor any agencies. All of the agencies that you discussed were talked to, the interest was expressed out to them that we are looking for locations, we are looking for partners. There was no partners or facilities that were identified.
Once again, I believe it's because they hear a certain type of candidate possibly coming in there. But in a cold or hot weather situation, we actually have multiple user groups that would use multiple different sites, youth, seniors,
There's clearly an administration issue for that too, that we would have to explore, right? So for funding and there's a staff resource requirement in order to establish these centers and fund them and make sure that there's adequate resources to staff them, et cetera.
I think we should be thankful that we've got one location and work on that because we could really get bogged down here if we're trying to visualize multiple locations throughout the community and who would pay for them and so on and so forth. A lot of this isn't really our mandate, but we're stuck with it.
And that's why I'm scared about this discussion here, because I think there are opportunities. I think it's, once again, an awareness issue. And I don't think the cost will be that much different as long as we have our long-term strategy in place already, and then we offer those and say, are there truly just one? I think for different scenarios, there will be more than one.
Hopefully somebody hears your call tonight and phones me tomorrow. I would much appreciate that. That would be excellent.
I'm going to go to Councillor McKelvey and then Councillor Vic. Thank you,
Mr. Mayor. I think it would be pretty convenient if we used 395 Elliott because, you know, if it's going to be cold and they've spent the night there anyway, you know, they're not transporting themselves halfway across town. It just makes sense to have it at 395 Elliott Street to me. That's my comment. So I don't know. It just, you know, bearing in mind that we still have a lot of information that we have to digest around this whole process. Thank you.
Okay, I think I've got Councillor Vic.
Yeah, I agree with Councillor McKelvey. I think by proximity, that location would be useful, but thinking about other locations in the city that are convenient for those living in downtown Quesnel or South Quesnel, I really hope through this dialogue that it gets out that we can have more than one location, correct?
We could have more than one, but okay. We'd have to figure out how to resource it properly.
I think it could be partially a messaging issue where if we located the one shelter or the one warming center at the temporary shelter, there might be a misconception of the customers that will go there, shall we say. If we had multiple warming centers, then it might reveal that it's for everyone. It's for everyone.
Thank you, and this is a good point. Obviously, this discussion tonight is talking about the warming center that probably is made available for a certain clientele. There is a different requirement for resourcing it because of, as was discussed tonight, some of the needs of that population. We often and always recommend that people utilize the other public facilities in the community as warming or cooling centers, as you've probably seen in past advertisements. I believe some of you emailed me after I put one of them out.
Councillor Runge.
So I guess then that's for my clarification more than anything, because I'm not talking about just our homeless population here. I am talking about a warming or cooling center for our citizens. And for that, I believe we need more than one center, because we will not all go to one center if we're in a situation where our heat breaks down in our house or whatever. That's what I was getting at. So it's not about not taking Elliott Street. Elliott Street needs, for me, there's a lot of questions there, but it's about this process being for all of our citizens.
Go ahead, Tanya.
Thank you, and you're absolutely right. We always advise of other spaces people and community members can utilize, and it definitely is a best practice to have a number of different places where individuals can go for cooling or heating centers for a variety of population needs, for sure.
Anyone else before we move forward? Okay. Go to the next one.
So I think, I don't know I'm going to go into the additional background. I think that's there for council's convenience and knowing some other aspects of these areas. But so we can get into the resolution if council's feeling ready for that.
Yes, I think we're ready.
So do you want me to just read it all out, or did you want me to go into just the...
May I recommend, Mayor, that we invite from council which ones you want to parse out here to simplify the process? Because I think
And
we've got...
This is under additional background.
Yeah, we've got some clear direction here that when with respect to 395 Elliott, it sounds like you want to have an additional conversation around that in July. So the other ones that you want to receive or recommend that staff move forward with tonight, so I would separate it out that way if we can get some direction from council.
Yeah, and is staff happy with that, like getting it into the record sort of in that context?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. All right, so Councillor Vic.
So I'll move the recommendation that council receive the information for the report on the long-term shelter planning, temporary shelter, and the cold weather plan. I'll move that.
Okay, that's moved by Councillor Vic and seconded by Councillor Goulet. Any further discussion? Councillor Runge.
Yeah, for the long-term shelter strategy, will that, because I see that dovetailing into some of our discussions that we might have. So because there's certain things that I would feel more comfortable about if they were discussed, and they should, if our long-term strategy is to have, let's say, I brought it up to you before, a community impact plan or something, would that play into this?
So just to clarify, Councillor Vic has just moved the first two items of the 5, so there's still 3 more to go, and I believe that is the motion that's on the floor right now.
Oh, I'm sorry, I think he also moved 5. So
1 and 2.
1 and 2.
I'm sorry. So then we got to deal with 3 and 4 and 5 next.
Thank you. Sorry.
So just to be clear, Councillor Vic's motion is for recommendation number 1 and 2 coupled together in one motion. Okay, good. So I have seconder. Everything's good. Can I call question? All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Hey, we're making hay. Okay, so Tanya, if you can continue on, we'll see if we can.
And then I believe it's just the last motion that we're looking for a resolution on from council. That council endorses staff's proposal to work towards a long-term strategy for the community.
Just help me here. Which number are you referring to?
The 5th one, the final one.
Oh, the final one. Okay. And then the other ones are tabled. Okay, so therefore I am looking for a motion, or pardon me, a mover for the council-endorsed staff's proposal to work towards a long-term shelter strategy for the community. Am I right with that? Councillor McKelvey, you're moving?
Yes.
And Councillor Runge is seconding, or you're not seconding? Councillor Vic, you're seconding. Councillor Runge, you have a comment.
Yeah, so I do have a comment, because I believe all these things, like I said before, go together. And I believe that that long-term strategy, if it can wait for the month while we discuss those other things, I think all those pieces will start to fall together.
Go ahead, Councillor. Did you have a comment?
I was just going to say, I think it will just naturally flow that way, won't it?
I think so.
Well, not if a plan's already made, and then we have to make that decision from that.
Okay, I'm going to go to City Manager first.
Yeah, so keep in mind that the plan is an overarching piece on timing, how we're going to engage, that we need to engage, but it's also a reminder that we're pushing a rock up a bit of a hill here, which is that over the next few years, we are going to have to working with Quesnel Shelter and Support Society, as well as BC Housing, the provincial government, and then a variety of stakeholders around the community, which we will be getting constant feedback from council on who else to engage with. We look to council for that. So you're able to weigh in and influence who we're engaging as we go, to get some socialization and some understanding in the community and direction on where a long-term shelter should potentially go. But the rock part up the hill is this isn't our jurisdiction, which council is very much familiar with. So once the community lands on and city lands on, hey, these are a couple of different options, here's the size of the shelter that we will eventually need, here's the reasons why, here's the services that will need to be included, then we'll need council advocacy to endorse that. Then it goes up to the province to say, hey, you now need to fund this as a replacement, because that part of it is not our jurisdiction. So to Councillor McKelvey's point, and a recommendation for us to start moving on this tonight is council saying to us, yeah, we get what you're doing. We understand that we can influence this process and add in stakeholders as you go, and that also from a timing perspective, by the time you have your meeting in July and in August, those pieces are going to be informing who we're engaging with. So I hope that gives you a sense of here's the general engagement strategy, but staff always has to duck, dodge, weave, and respond to what the community's needs are as we go through this process, which allows council, both this one and the next one, to engage with it. This is not a done deal locked in as in this is all we're doing. This is something that is very iterative and is going to take multiple years.
Okay, so we have a motion on the floor, duly moved and seconded. You're good with that? Am I looking for any further comments or questions before I call the question? All in favor? Opposed? Carried unanimously. Okay, are we able to move on now? I hope we are. We've got lots more business to go through. Is this enough for staff to chomp on?
It is. The only thing I was going to say, and I do believe we have staff direction both between Laura and I to work with haste to find the next opportunity between now and the end of July for council to have a discussion on the temporary the shelter as well as the warming center. So that'll be the next thing in your schedule. And as I said previously, I welcome the feedback and engagement from members of council as well as members of the community who want to provide some guidance and some suggestions on how we engage with the city on the long-term plan.
Okay, so we now can move to item number 8, hopefully. Staff report number 54/26, cemetery contribution agreement with the Caribou Regional District. Director Bolton to report.
Thank you. The purpose of this report is to obtain council approval to enter into a contribution agreement with the Caribou Regional District for the cemetery. So at the request of the Caribou Regional District, the long-standing omnibus memorandum of understanding covering multiple shared services is being replaced with individual service agreements. The city has now received the cemetery contribution agreement and some other ones like transit and handy dart and stuff, and other agreements are still outstanding. So funding for the cemetery is now fixed at $50,000 per year for maintenance costs versus they used to give 50% of maintenance costs based on a 2-year rolling basis. So the previous agreement would have resulted in a contribution of approximately $90,000 and increased yearly with cost increases. To make up for the shortfall, the city will be reviewing the cemetery fees charged to regional residents and will bring forward increases in the next review of the comprehensive fees bylaw. So besides that, there were just some changes to the termination language, and the term is now 3 years, from 2026 to 2028. And that's about it. So the recommendation is that council enter into the attached 3-year cemetery contribution agreement with the Caribou Regional District effective January 1st, 2026, and that the mayor and corporate administrator be authorized to execute such documentation as required to complete the agreement.
Okay, thank you for that. Looking for a mover for the resolution, Councillor Goulet, Councillor Vic. Any discussion? Councillor Vic.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So, Carrie, they've capped what they're going to contribute, even though the real cost of maintenance is considerably higher, and that's going to invite us to review the fees we charge to non-city residents. And I think that's fair, and I think that's principled in terms of a policy, but the question needs to be asked is, what was the reason why they felt our maintenance is too high? Is there a discussion there, or I guess, can you comment on that?
Yeah, we had quite a few discussions back and forth with our staff. They just feel that we maintain our cemeteries at a higher level than they feel cemeteries need to be maintained at. So I know we've asked in the budget survey, everyone was happy with our level of service at the cemetery. Our citizens seem happy with it. So, I mean, it's always an option later the council can look at cutting back. Public Works did look at some ways to cut back costs, and they were able to reduce it a bit, but not substantially to get it where $50,000 would be 50% of the cost.
Thank you.
Okay, anyone else? Okay, are you happy with the mover and a seconder? Ready to rock and roll here? All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Okay, so the next one is staff report, admin report 56/26, Animal Control Services Director Turner to report.
Thank you, Mayor. We go right into the background here, summary. The BC Society for the Prevention of Cruelty to Animals advised in December of 2025 they will not be seeking renewal of their contract with the city to supply kenneling services. They have been providing this service since 2001, as you'll see in the other part of the report. Staff researched other communities and have found that there is significant variation between communities on animal control services provided with very little consistency and identified best practices. Staff researched facilities in the community that may be interested in providing the kenneling service, but did not find any suitable options. Most kennels would have difficulty permitting unrecorded animals into their facilities due to concerns related to the spread of illness and disease. With the current absence of a facility for dangerous animals, a direction to immediately suspend seizure of dangerous animals is requested tonight. When the animal and shelter support services are discontinued without identifying, and if we do not identify any other provider, we're recommending that we amend our bylaw to remove pound, as well as seizure and impoundment of animals. The sections dealing with that in the bylaw. At this point, because we're still having discussions with the Shelter and Support Society, the shelter. There's a lot of shelter talk tonight with the SPCA. We just don't want to time the removal of that section of the bylaw too early. So we are recommending we suspend it now. We will act on removing it should that be the right choice at that time as we just continue these discussions. The remainder of the animal, bird, and insect bylaw is enforced by the bylaw department and is recommended to be maintained. The report does go into the specific sections of the animal control bylaw and what they do, and are provided there for council's consideration. And I hope it demonstrates why I believe those items should still be maintained to control the animal welfare in the community to the best of our ability as we kind of work through this issue. Additionally, you'll see when we get to the recommendation that we're also recommending that we put out a RFP just to have that avenue covered. We've talked to a couple of other communities who have done such a thing. They have not had great responses, but we do feel like it's an appropriate next step as we continue to work with SPCA. At this point, if you have no further questions, I can go into the recommendation.
Can we go to the recommendation? Oh, you want to go? Okay, go ahead.
I like the recommendations. I just have some questions. So does the SPCA, and maybe this is to finance, so because they're running their business, my read is to bring animals through Quesnel to other locations. Do they get a tax exemption for their properties?
They do currently, but I've already informed them that it won't be in place next year if they're no longer acting as the pound, because we actually put that into the tax exemption bylaw, that it was only eligible if it was acting as the pound.
Thank you. That, I think, was my only question here. Thank you.
Councillor McKelvey.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I understand, if I understand this correctly, that to suspend the seizure of dangerous animals is until a facility to house dangerous animals is identified. It's a temporary situation.
Thank you. Sorry, I keep forgetting to turn off my mic. That is hoped to be the case. We hope that we're going to be able to find another facility. At this point, I can't guarantee that we're going to be able to at this point.
Councillor Runge. And I'm going to go to Councillor Vic first, because you're coming up a second or a third time.
So for the mechanics of this, if we agree to these modifications tonight, the mechanics of it, tomorrow morning when someone wakes up and they need to report a dangerous dog, what will a citizen do then?
So there's some different steps into the bylaw, and that's why I also kind of listed the bylaw here. A dangerous dog report is not the first step. It's likely that they're going to be calling to report an aggressive dog or an aggressive dog behavior. That all is still maintained in the bylaw, and they will report that to bylaw services. There is steps that are taken with aggressive dogs. The only issue that we have right now is if we were to go and determine that a dog is dangerous, we do not have a facility. The next step is seizure of it. We do not have a facility to take it to. So without having that ability, we're putting ourselves at great risk and staff as well for not taking that action. But they literally cannot take that action if they have nowhere to take it to.
So in Dawson Creek, they have a similar situation where they've canceled their bylaws as it pertains to dangerous dogs and sheltering. So what happens in Dawson Creek if they don't have a facility to store or to house a dangerous animal? What do they do?
Well, that is just occurring, as you might know. I've been following that quite closely. It's a bit different because SPCA is still offering their services to Dawson Creek SPCA is still offering their services, period. Dawson Creek is choosing to not take those services. Dawson Creek is choosing not to take those services as reported due to the cost of those services. So they are deleting the whole bylaw too. They are removing all animal control services out of there, because in Dawson Creek, not only did the SPCA do the sheltering and dangerous animals, they also did all of their animal control bylaw enforcement work.
I'm just trying to have clarity when we wake up tomorrow, and if X, Y, and Z were to happen where a dog would need to be seized, that would require a court order, an animal may be seized, what would happen to that dog then?
Well, just so you know, in 20 years, we've never seized a dangerous dog. So if that gives you some help, most times, Bylaw is able to work with Bylaw is able to work with the dog owner and find a resolve. It occurred very recently. We've actually had an increase, and I did want to make sure that I was clear. We are having an increase in aggressive dog cases, and Bylaw is working with a number of different individuals and or dog owners, and is working to resolve the issues without having to seize, which we always would do anyway.
Sorry, Councillor Runge.
For my second question, for those guys that are counting.
Not the third, right?
Not the third, that comes later. And I just, if we refer to page 124 of 181, we realize that we actually have had not that many dogs go to the pound from the city. So those 3 that went there, would have those been aggressive dogs, or could have those been other issues?
They were very unlikely aggressive dogs. BC-SPCA, although they did have our file, they have been not wanting to take aggressive dogs for quite some time.
Thank you.
Okay, anyone else on this one? Oh, Councillor McKelvey.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Do we leave ourselves open for liability if we pass this bylaw, if something happens as a city?
These are resolutions right now, and I think we leave ourselves open for more liability if we don't pass that we're suspending these services. If there should be a case that, it definitely, our staff need to have these resolutions from council in order, due to the resources that they have currently.
Yeah, actually, I was going to ask much the same question, but kind of flipped around. I see us not amending this bylaw as subjecting us to possible legal liability as compared to the other way around. But certainly, through the process, Mr. City Manager, would we be obtaining any kind of a legal opinion or legal advice on this? I mean, we're going to go ahead with it anyhow, but...
Yeah, I mean, just to reiterate from Director Turner's perspective and the research that we've done, why we are recommending to council this goes forward is to limit or mitigate our legal liability at this point in time, because as long as this is still in there, but these services aren't being offered, if something were to occur, then we would be in a tough spot legally. But I would turn it back to Tanya, or just around sort of the legal advice that she's gotten to date on this particular issue. And do keep in mind the last part of the recommendation is to go to a request for proposals to seek out somebody to work with the city and provide some of these services going forward.
Thank you. I will say that this matter has come up for discussion generally at the Caribou Regional District in public meeting, open meeting assembled, and there may be some opportunity in at least asking if there's any opportunity to work together with either the Caribou Regional District or the Fraser-Fort George Regional District, or both. I think everything's on the table with this issue. Okay, Councillor Vic.
Sorry, Mr. Mayor, one more question. So with these changes that we're considering tonight, does this put us on sort of a tack with as per the regional district, where a resident finds a stray animal, they call the SPCA and bring the dog to the SPCA, and now will this put us on that same trajectory?
So what the amendments are, well, I'm not doing the amendments quite yet. I'm just doing suspension of those particular services at this point. As we continue to work to a resolve, we may have to do that should we come to the end of the term with the SPCA and we don't have a resolve. There's a difficulty in understanding. We are working quite closely with the SPCA, but there is some confusion with respect to who can turn animals into the SPCA once they discontinue their services with the city. At this point, the communication from the SPCA is that individuals within the city would not be able to surrender an animal to the SPCA once our contract ends. So that really is a bigger issue, because as you can see by the numbers that I've presented, individuals providing animals to the SPCA is larger than the animals, as council pointed out, than Bylaw taking animals into the SPCA. So the sheltering services as a whole in the community, the lack of those are concerning to us, definitely, and we are working to try and find a resolve.
Okay, we have a motion, don't we? No? Okay. So Councillor Runge, are you moving? And Councillor, Councillor Vic is seconding. Okay, so are we all ready to, no more questions, no more comments? Okay, I'm going to call the question on the recommendation. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Okay, thank you for that. The last, no, that's actually the second to last report, because we have a late item too. Staff report number 5526, 2025 annual drinking water monitoring report. Superintendent Loss, thank you for sticking with us. You're up.
Thank you. Yeah, I like watching Director Turner work anyway. You guys kept her pretty big. She's impressive. You're lucky to have her. So in summary, the day off there. In summary, the City of Quesnel's 2025 annual drinking water quality monitoring report shows that routine drinking water monitoring and reporting requirements were met during the year. A total of 371 samples were tested for E. coli with no exceedances, and follow-up testing resolved all total coliform exceedances. The city also continued regular system maintenance and monitoring activities, including leak detection, reservoir inspections, water main flushing, and operator training. A water quality advisory for manganese remains in place, and the city continues to work with qualified professionals and Northern Health on treatment, planning, and regulatory approvals needed to reduce manganese levels and support future removal of the advisory. The full report is available to the public as part of the city's annual reporting obligations. This reporting is required under the Drinking Water Protection Act and the provincial drinking water protection regulations. And the City of Quesnel's water distribution system is issued a permit to operate through Northern Health, the Northern Health Authority, and is required to meet the conditions of the permit. Microbiology and quality sampling are a condition of the permit. Along with the report, I've attached a summary of all the water sampling results from 2025. The full certificates of analysis, are available. I've included the permit to operate and the water quality advisory from 2022. Thank you.
Okay, so this is submitted for information only. I'm going to open the floor to questions. Councillor Runge, how unusual.
I know. We kept you here so long, you have to have a question. My question is on page 152 of 181. Because we don't have last year's numbers, are these numbers trending about the same as previous years in well number 8, 9, 10, or are we seeing any significant changes?
The results would be a continuous, kind of at the same level. They don't vary a whole lot with the.
Thank you.
I think I've got Councillor Vic next. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thanks, Joe. Awesome information. I got a couple questions. I hope you'll indulge me. I'm looking at the last page of the page 178, which is the actual permit. And right at the bottom there's a little worrying element there that requires that by 2030 that we've done the water treatment. So what happens what's in your assessment, what's our risk there that if we haven't done the water treatment, and how does that relate to our permit?
That is a good question. Director Colbin's offering to step in, but yeah, we'd have to have some conversations for sure.
Yeah. Well, we have been, the other conditions that are outlined in the operating permit, we've been working towards those. We've been working towards the treatment. We've been updating Northern Health, having conversations as we go. In conversations with them, it's a 5-year minimum to, even if we were to start the project today, to construction. So they're aware. We haven't received any formal feedback. So as we move forward in this conditions, like once we now that we know what the costs of treatment are, we've been looking for grants. So we've updated Northern Health following the last report that went to council in 2025 to no response. So yet again, we will reach out and let them know that we are working towards it. It's not attainable. So we have had no feedback formally from Northern Health. So far, we're on an advisory. The next step were they to order us to treat.
So the $1 million question, or the perhaps $40 million question, depending on the cost of the treatment plant, would be, would they extend the permit, knowing the position we're in, where we've done the rigor, we've got a plan?
Well, yeah, I would presume so. That's a conversation we need to have with them.
Okay. And then the last question, and I get it, council wants to have a more fulsome discussion on prioritizing capital projects. For us, so in that context, if we want to go out for grants to help pay for water treatment, do we need to do any more rigor on the costing, the very specific costing of water treatment, and procuring the services of some engineer to give us a proper number to go and apply for these grants?
Yeah, well, as it stands right now, the treatment methods and the three-year process, 4-year process we work towards determining the most cost-effective solution has been worked out, and we've found those answers. Where we got to was a Class C estimate, which included the 25% contingency and $2023. So to go and do a whole bunch more work and recost that at this moment may just be fruitless if the project wouldn't kick off for another 3 to 5 years, because you'd just be essentially starting over, right? So once the when we head down that road where we know we're going to kick, then that would trigger that whole, okay, well, what is the cost going to be? Is everything still current? Has there been any changes? Sort of type work.
So at that moment in time, that's where council would have to act to enable such a new study or cost analysis?
Yeah, we definitely wouldn't fly blind and just go ahead and do the project without definitely getting some opinions on what the cost would be.
I just don't want to hold up the process. That's I guess where I'm going with this. If not having the most current numbers is a hindrance to us getting a grant, I'd like to address that.
Okay, any further questions on this? And staff, we don't need a resolution to receive. We don't usually do that.
No.
Okay. I have a couple of questions for you, for staff. I'm not going to direct it to any particular staff member, but the first one is, it would be useful for the graph at the bottom of page 180, where we've got the averages and the maximums and the minimums for well number 7, 8, 9, and 10. If there was an extra column there that would provide information based on the previous manganese threshold number. In other words, if the federal government, in their infinite wisdom, had not gone and changed the threshold numbers, where would we be, and would any of these numbers not be red? Would they be black?
I could answer that one. Previous to the maximum allowable concentration in the guidelines, there was no level set. So
Oh, I thought that there was a level set like this. So the number or the threshold number that has been, and I think it was in May of 2019. That's when that came in. That was brand new, so there was no threshold number, nothing on the books about manganese. It was Wild West.
That's correct.
Okay. Thank you. And also, further to this, you guys attend, or the staff attends and we're members of the BC Water and Waste Association. And when you go to your annual general meetings, I mean, obviously, manganese has to be on the agenda big time, because Quesnel's not the only community that's fighting this. And it would sure be good to know how many other communities are faced with this huge problem. I mean, this project is getting in the way of a lot of much more, in my view, more needed infrastructural projects. In fact, at the end of the day, after spending $20 or $30 million, whether that's all, well, it can't be all our tax money, or else we'd all be out of office. But if we discontinued that, I'm just kind of lost my train of thought here. It would be good to know how many other communities are suffering this same situation. I haven't seen anything out there. It seems like every community is sort of on their own. Councillor Runge.
I think this discussion is going kind of sideways, because in fairness to any senior level of government, they've looked at this and they've said, look, young kids and certain people are seriously being affected by this. That changes the parameters of everything. You know, years ago, Roundup was A-OK. Then it wasn't, because we found out it was causing serious cancer to a lot of people. So I think we're going off on a little bit of a rabbit hole. Here's the numbers. We need to find a way for the federal government to maybe offer more than 40%, because a community our size just cannot. You know, maybe we can come up with $1 million. You know, maybe not even that. You know, so if health is truly important to the federal government and the provincial government, we should be pushing them to say, hey, is there a way for you to fund a water treatment plant for our community, and actually any other community that finds itself in this situation?
Yeah, I hear you loud and clear, Councillor Runge, but I would sure like to see something on, you know, the health effects of manganese. I don't see a whole lot out there, yeah, it's a huge concern. And as I say, it's getting in the way of us being able to pave our roads and buy flowers and do a whole bunch of things. And at the end of the day, you know, we're going to spend, like I say, $20 or $30 million on this project. The next morning, people are going to turn on their taps. The water looks the same. The water tastes the same. Nothing has changed except their taxes. So onwards and upwards. Okay, so we don't need a resolution on that. So now no more further discussion on this item. Okay, now I'm going to go to late item, and this is annual report. City Manager McKay to present the annual report for 2025.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Acknowledging the time of the evening, I'm going to move quickly. I'm going to assume that all of you have read the annual report. I just want to thank our communications clerk, Jen Reed. She did a beautiful job pulling this together. And I also just want to commend staff right across the city at all levels for what they delivered on in 2025. It was a busy year, as you know. There was a lot of direction from council on what the priorities were, and on top of what the operational requirements were, and city staff delivered, and you can see that captured in the annual report. So I'm proud of the work that staff has done, and certainly thank council for the clarity of direction. Happy to take any questions. I would invite a motion to approve the annual report so that we can fulfill our legislative requirements.
Okay, Councillor Runge, you're actually moving something. Okay, that's good. No, I'm just having fun with you. Councillor Vic is seconding. Before I call the question, I just want to say that to staff, and I say this every year, that this annual report, and so that it is so well presented and so concise and so all inclusive. It is probably the best sales tool for economic development that we have. In fact, I want to make sure that that delegation that was here tonight gets a copy of this, because there's a lot of valuable information in here that would lead a company that's contemplating investing here in Quesnel or Quesnel and area. It would prompt them to actually make that decision and give it a big yes. So, do I have a mover and a seconder? I don't. I do? Okay, then we're all in favor to accept it? There you go. Sorry, it's getting late. And so we don't have any more reports. Council information package, nobody has asked anything to come forward from that. We do have 2 items of correspondence. The first one is from the Quesnel Telecom Society. They're looking for a letter of support.
Just, Mr. Mayor, I'll declare a conflict of interest just because I'm the ED for the Quesnel Telecom Society, so.
So you're declaring a conflict?
Yeah, I just won't vote on this. it's a conflict for me.
Yeah, okay. Well, I don't have a problem with that. And
I don't know if I have to leave or stay.
Better for you to step out, Councillor Goulet, for this one. Thank you.
I'm just looking for the actual letter here.
It's on the very last page of your printed package.
Thank you, but it's not there, so. Hang on, I'm going to get Councillor McKelvey to help me with this. I don't know where it went, but so this is a letter. Dear City Council, Quesnel Telecom Society has applied for a grant through Northern Development Initiative Trust, and in order for us to be approved, we need a letter of support from the City of Quesnel Council. This grant is to assist us in finishing our project of new tables and chairs for our hall and a storage unit to house them. So can we have a motion? Councillor McKelvey, Councillor Vic, Councillor Vic, all in favor? Opposed? Carried. Okay, we can call Councillor Goulet back in. Oh, yes, there you go. And we have one more, and that is a late letter that just came in today, and you've got it all in front of you. And what I'm looking for is a resolution to send a letter to the City of Castlegar regarding their request for letters of support advocating to the Ministry of Transportation and Transit at UBCM for future plans for small regional airports. Small regional airports, as was demonstrated earlier today when I delivered my airport advisory committee report, small airports that were downloaded to municipalities along with bridges and so on some time ago for this measly sum of $1. We're now paying the price. And so I would encourage council to vote in favor of sending a letter in support of the resolution that's coming from the City of Castlegar in this regard. Councillor Elliott is moving, seconding Councillor Vic. Are we all in favor? Opposed? Okay, thank you for that, Council. We have no bylaws that are listed tonight for action. No new business arising. Information and question period. No changes to upcoming council meeting schedule. No changes to committee appointments. Announcements and events. Anybody? Anybody? I know it's too early for Billy Barcady, so I'll save that one. In fact, do we?
I think we have a meeting before that.
Pardon me?
Okay.
let's not forget, obviously, that Billy Barker Days is celebrating its 50th anniversary, even though its 50th anniversary is 3 years late. We lost two years to COVID and 1 year to fires, so get out and enjoy. As I said earlier, Pat and I are actually hosting a Japanese 50s rock and roll band, and they said that they would come on the condition that they all stay at our house. It certainly gives us reason to clean up the house and the yard, so we're really happy about that. Nothing else for the good of council? Oh, come on up. Just give us your name, rank, and serial number, and ask your question. And it has to be obviously a question that pertains to anything that was on the agenda.
This is John, 221 Enemark Road South. The question is, can you tell me what the excess manganese, what health effects that has, that they're limiting it?
Sorry, I didn't get that.
This manganese problem with the water, what's the health effect of it?
Don't look at me. I wish I knew, but
yeah.
I believe it causes mental issues with younger children. So that it's found to seriously affect the younger people and also pregnant women. But
okay, I've got a staff member that would maybe offer some help here.
Yeah, so the guidelines were changed back in 2018. Studies have shown it's caused some neurological development, delayed development in children at very high levels. If you actually go to the city website, under city water, there's a whole backgrounder on it, including the risks, the recommendations. There was our communications team put to all the information there. It's also available on Health Canada's website. Mm-hmm. So that's probably where you could find the most of the information.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you for that question. Anyone else? George.
George Henderson, 852 Reynard Street. On the temporary shelter, those are where my questions are going to be. Has council asked the RCMP or the fire department how many times they've been on that site?
I don't know that I'm going to answer this, but maybe staff can even provide further information. I know that we have that number. I don't know that I'm not aware that it's ever been reported out to council. It may be a matter of public record. Staff, any help here?
I think you mean the temporary rental shelter, not bridges, or
in the area.
In the area during the time that the temporary winter shelter was or implemented, or just?
Well, I think I think the question matters regardless of what time of year.
It's just whether I can answer the question. So I don't believe we have had anything with the temporary winter shelter. That will be some additional questions and discussions that we'll be having with fire, and I know fire hasn't had the incidences, but we have to have further conversations with the RCMP. But we do have discussions with areas that are impactful to the RCMP and fire for sure.
With all due respect, fire has had a lot of issues over there. You should talk to the fire chief.
In the area.
Bridges.
There was yes.
They've been to bridges multiple times. I'm a little surprised that the RCMP incident that delayed the opening of that facility wasn't mentioned to BC Housing tonight.
I'm not sure what you're referring to. Are you talking about the vandalism? And
yes.
Yeah. Well, I'm positive that they're aware of it.
Well, the report says there were no incidents over there.
I guess that's their opinion, but I'm absolutely sure that they were aware of it. Staff, they had to have been.
Oh, definitely, and there's been lots of conversations about the incident. Yeah, absolutely, and the impacts on the area and the partners, Northern Health and BC Housing. And I believe he actually did mention it because he also referred to that it created an issue for the relationship between BC Housing and Northern Health.
Do you think that a person driving by there a few times a night without even getting out of the vehicle is sufficient security over there?
I'm not aware of if that's how the security is conducted, but really, those are questions that need to be directed to, I guess, the housing, not us, or maybe jointly. That's a good question. Are you absolutely sure that security consists of simply driving by without stopping?
I don't know if they stop. I'm asking council, are you going to be asking all of these questions? And I'm asking you now before you make a decision. It's not up to me to ask these questions. I'm not on council.
Well, you've raised them, and they're on the record now, so good
That's
question.
the point.
Go ahead, Councillor Runge.
So I think one of the reasons that we moved this to talk about it later was for that exact reason. And I talked with our city manager briefly just before the meeting, because for me, it's really important to have an integrated community plan that deals with all of these issues. Whether it's partnership agreements that are not just advisory in nature, but we can actually check them out, whether it's, who we're talking about, what we're doing for safety, what we're doing for all the questions that you're asking. And I believe that, and I think that's why this was actually pushed away from tonight, because we can't finish this discussion in those questions that you're asking us right now tonight. They are on our agenda, are on our radar. That's we have had complaints given to us personally as councillors, so this discussion has to come for us into the, and that's what we're hoping to do by, I guess, our July and August meetings. I think I'm looking at Joel just because those are the meetings that this is specifically coming up with. And I do hope that your concerns are shared with Joel, so they're also in there, because one of my questions is, how does community get involved?
Yeah.
The school district, there's been needles found in the schools nearby that area. Have you talked to the school district about how many more needles have been found? There is a school very close to that area.
Well, personally, I was unaware of needles found in schools. So there's another one, whether it's a direct result of, the shelter there, or who knows.
If you go to mycaribounow.com, there'll be a story there for you to read on that.
I'll be there.
I just have one more question with your indulgence. Was the public made aware that the temporary shelter was up for renewal tonight? And the general public and the people in that area, just to be up front, I do have a house in that area. I wasn't told anything about it. And the lot has changed since it was approved. And I'm alluding to the RCMP and the fire and the needles.
Well, as with all agreements, they have a start and an end date, and that's all public information. All of this material, all 222 pages of it, is online. So the public has access to all of this information. So what are you suggesting, that maybe we should have some alternate method of advising our citizens?
Yes.
Knocking on doors?
When the initial decision was made, there was a meeting. It was at 10 in the morning between New Year's and Christmas, which the public really didn't have much of a chance. They work, right? So I would think that when you're going to renew it, you would do the same process. Invite the public for their comments. Are they still in support of it if they were before? Are they still opposed to it if they were before?
Well, I'm sure that just by virtue of the fact that you've raised that question and we're all sitting here, yes. That's my personal opinion.
Well, but they weren't informed, Mr. Mayor, with all due respect. I wasn't informed. I have a house in that area. I was shocked. I just read the agenda today and I couldn't believe it was on there, frankly.
Staff, Can anybody help us here?
Yes, what George is talking about is that with a temporary use permit, there is notice that goes out for that permit. We did that notice to begin with. The resolution that came out, which George and in other areas reported on, advised that we would be having, council would want a report to come to council and have certain information provided to them to determine whether they were going to renew it or not. There was not a discussion about going back to the public. This is done with other permitting where you may do extensions. You don't necessarily go back to the full council or community consultation, but that could be something that council may want us to do.
Okay, I'm going to Councillor Runge.
So I'm having an issue with this because on December 30th, we were very clear that we were going to have a community consultation process before it came up again. That was my understanding of it. I think when I look at the video, I'm sure that's what we were discussing. Well, so maybe if we didn't, that is definitely what I wanted. That is why today it was being pushed off. That is why I believe that we missed the boat here to let the public know. This is a big issue for some people. It's not as big issues for other people in the community. It has, I don't know what to say. And that's why we pushed hard today, because it's not about the issue is we have an issue that we have to deal with as a community. And we have a community issue also with regards to safety and all those types of things. We have to find a way that we can actually open the floor a little bit here as council and as the public so this doesn't happen, because when I read this council meeting on, I think Laura gave it to me on Thursday at our meeting, so I had a few extra days. The first thing that sprung out to me was, how is this coming up right now? Without, I thought even as a council, we're going to have more discussion, but let's stop here. I think this is why we moved it forward, so that we can have a discussion.
Thank you.
Okay, anyone else from the gallery before I call for a motion to adjourn? Moved by Councillor Vic. I saw that. Councillor Runge seconding it. Are we all in favor? Opposed? Carried? Thank you.